Imagine a road at dusk, bathed in the soft, fading light of the sun. The air is still and warm, carrying the scent of dry earth and night-blooming flowers. A lone figure walks along this path, his saffron robe a gentle splash of color against the deepening twilight. He is a monk, with a simple wooden bowl in his hands and nothing else. He doesn't search for a temple. He doesn't look for an inn. Instead, he turns towards a hill, where an ancient tree stands silhouetted against the first stars. He settles at its base, his back resting against the sturdy trunk, and he looks up. He watches the moon climb the sky and sees the universe unfold above him, a blanket of 1,000 glittering diamonds. He smiles, a quiet, peaceful smile, and prepares to sleep under the open sky. There is no door to lock, no window to shut. His roof is the cosmos, his bed, the patient earth. This image raises a quiet question, a whisper in the soul. Where does true peace come from? And what of us? We lie in our comfortable beds, behind locked doors and solid walls, yet our minds are anything but peaceful. We are surrounded by possessions, by the fruits of our labor, yet we feel a profound sense of lack. We close our eyes, but we do not see stars. We see a frantic slideshow of yesterday's regrets and tomorrow's anxieties. Our homes, meant to be our sanctuaries, often feel like gilded cages, built from the bricks of our worries and the mortar of our attachments. We have everything, it seems, and yet we feel trapped. The monk has nothing, and yet he is utterly free. His freedom, you see, is not a matter of circumstance. It is a state of mind. He has found the real home, the one that cannot be built with hands, but can only be discovered within. He has learned to let go, not just of things, but of the inner turmoil that chains us to suffering. Buddhist wisdom is not a distant philosophy. It is a practical path to finding that same freedom. It is an invitation to discover the vast, starry sky that exists within your own mind. This journey is not about leaving your life behind, but about learning to live within it, with the heart of that monk, peaceful, unburdened, and finally, truly home. We do not sleep under the stars like the peaceful monk. We believe it is neither safe nor comfortable. Instead, we reside in palaces, magnificent structures we have spent our entire lives building, brick by gleaming brick. These are not necessarily palaces of marble and gold, but they are palaces nonetheless, constructed in the landscape of our minds, designed for one purpose: to protect us from the uncertainties of the world. This is the palace of illusions. Its foundation is our deepest longing for security, and its walls are built from the things we cling to, the very things we believe will make us happy and keep us safe. The most visible walls of this palace are our material possessions. We begin construction early in life. The first toy we couldn't bear to share, that was a foundation stone. The first salary, a brick laid with pride. Then we add larger, more impressive stones, a car, polished and new, a symbol of our freedom and success that soon becomes a source of anxiety, a constant worry about dents, scratches and theft. We build the grandest wall of all, a house, taking on immense debt to secure our own private fortress against the world. We fill this fortress with objects, furniture, electronics, clothes, each item a small reinforcement, a testament to our identity, a buffer against the feeling of emptiness. We stand back and admire our work, the beautiful, solid walls of our palace. It feels secure, it feels real. But this security is a fragile illusion. The more we own, the more we have to lose. The palace we built for shelter slowly becomes a prison we must constantly guard. We are no longer the master of the house. The house is the master of us. Its needs dictate our lives. The mortgage demands our labor. The possessions demand our attention and upkeep. We are tethered by 1,000 invisible threads to the things we have acquired, and we live in quiet, persistent fear. The fear of loss, the fear of damage, the fear of not having enough to maintain the palace walls. The comfort of the plush sofa is diminished by the worry of a stain. The joy of the new television is haunted by the spectre of its obsolescence. We have built a fortress so secure that we have locked ourselves inside it, and we wonder why we do not feel free. The monk with his simple bowl owns nothing, and so he possesses everything. We own everything, and so our possessions possess us. Inside this palace of material things, the halls are decorated with something far more subtle, yet infinitely heavier: our reputation and our status. These are the grand tapestries we hang on the walls, woven from the opinions of others. We crave admiration, we thirst for respect, we live in mortal fear of judgment. So we craft masks, beautiful, elaborate masks to wear for the world. The mask of the successful professional, always competent, always in control. The mask of the perfect parent, whose children are always well-behaved and accomplished. The mask of the endlessly happy individual, whose life, at least on social media, is a curated stream of triumphs and beautiful moments. Maintaining these masks, upholding this reputation, is an exhausting performance. It is the hidden work of the palace custodian. We choose our words with infinite care. We weigh our actions on the scale of public perception. We live our lives as if under a constant, watchful gaze. The praise of others is a fleeting warmth, a temporary ray of sunshine in the cold stone halls, but the fear of criticism is a constant, chilling draft. This fear dictates our choices. It silences our authentic voice. It prevents us from taking risks, from being vulnerable, from being truly human. We become actors in a play of our own making, reciting lines we think the audience wants to hear. The palace becomes a theater, and we are its tired, lonely star performer. We long to take the mask off, to breathe, to be seen for who we truly are. But the walls of reputation we have built seem too high to climb over. We are trapped by the image we have so carefully crafted, a prisoner of the good opinion of people whose lives are just as masked as our own. The monk, walking alone on the dusty road, is judged by no one. He has no reputation to defend, no status to uphold. His identity is not woven from the thoughts of others, but found in the simple, silent truth of his own being. His face is his face, not a mask, and in this, he finds a liberation we can only dream of from within our decorated prison. And what are the blueprints for this grand palace of ours? They are our fixed ideas, our rigid beliefs about how life is supposed to be. These are the most dangerous components of all, because they are invisible, etched into the very foundations of our thinking. We carry a perfect architectural drawing in our minds, a rigid plan of how our life should unfold. I must be married by this age. I must achieve this level of career success. My life must be free of pain. People should always be fair. We cling to these blueprints with a desperate grip. They are our ultimate map, our guarantee of a predictable, orderly existence. But life is not an architect. Life is a wild, untamed river. It does not follow our neat lines or respect our careful calculations. And when reality inevitably deviates from our blueprint, our palace is shaken to its core. A relationship ends. A career path veers off course. An illness appears uninvited. A loved one acts in a way we don't understand. The world proves to be messy, unpredictable, and often unfair. Our suffering in these moments does not come from the event itself, but from the violent collision between reality and our fixed idea of how reality should be. We are not saddened, we are outraged. We are not disappointed, we are shattered. We rage against the river for not flowing where we told it to. We curse the world for not adhering to our sacred blueprints. We exhaust ourselves in a futile battle to bend reality to our will, to force the crooked timber of humanity to be straight. The wise person learns to discard the blueprint and work with the materials they are given. They learn to navigate the river as it is, not as they wish it to be. Our clinging to fixed ideas is the ultimate act of self-imprisonment. It turns the entire world into a disappointment, and life into a series of frustrating failures to comply with our demands. There is a story of a young prince who lived in the most magnificent palace ever built. His name was Siddhartha. His palace had every material comfort imaginable, walls so high they seemed to touch the clouds, gardens so beautiful they were called heaven on earth. His status was the highest in the land, his reputation flawless. The blueprint for his life was perfect. He would be a great king, powerful and revered. His father, the king, built this palace as a fortress against suffering, ensuring the prince never saw anything that would disturb his perfect world. Yet, Siddhartha felt a deep, unspoken disquiet. He felt the cold draft of anxiety in his warm, luxurious rooms. He sensed that the palace, for all its splendor, was a lie. Eventually, he persuaded his charioteer to take him outside the walls, and there he saw what the palace was built to hide: an old man, a sick man, and a corpse. He saw the undeniable truth that life involves change, decay, and death. In that moment, he realized his palace of pleasure was the most fragile structure of all, a house of cards built on a denial of reality. No wall could keep out old age. No amount of wealth could prevent sickness. No status could defy death. He saw that his life inside the palace was not a life of freedom, but a life of deep ignorance. And so, one night, he made a radical choice. He left. He walked out of the gates, trading his fine silks for a simple robe, his royal status for the anonymity of a wanderer, his life's perfect blueprint for the terrifying uncertainty of the unknown. He was not just leaving a building, he was walking out of the palace of illusions itself. He chose to sleep under the real stars, rather than a painted ceiling. He chose the truth of the open road, with all its dangers and discomforts, over the comfortable lie of his gilded cage. We all live in our own palaces, smaller perhaps, but built from the very same materials of attachment, reputation, and fixed ideas. The story of Siddhartha is not just a story about a prince. It is a story about the potential within each of us. It tells us that there is a door in the palace walls. It reminds us that we can choose to walk out. We do not have to abandon our homes or our families, but we can begin the inner journey of dismantling the prison walls, of letting go of the illusions we cling to, one brick, one tapestry, one flawed blueprint at a time. For only when we understand the nature of our prison can we begin to taste true freedom. We have explored the grand palace we build for ourselves, the palace of illusions, with its walls of possessions, its decorations of reputation, and its blueprints of fixed ideas. We have felt its confining nature, its cold and anxious halls. Now, we must look at the very ground upon which this magnificent prison is built. We imagine our lives are founded on solid rock, a stable platform from which we can build towards the sky. But the wisdom of the Buddha, the wisdom the monk under the stars embodies, reveals a different truth. Our palace is not built on solid ground. It is built on the soft, ever-shifting bank of a great and powerful river. This is the river of impermanence, the universal truth of anicca. This river is not some distant philosophical concept. It is the intimate, undeniable reality of every moment. Look at your own hand. It appears solid, a constant companion in your life's journey. Yet it is not the same hand that held a crayon as a child, nor is it the same hand it will be in 20 years. Every second, millions of cells are dying and new ones are being born. Your body is not a static object. It is a flowing process, a waterfall of change that maintains a consistent shape for a time. Our health, which we cling to so desperately, is a perfect example of this flow. One day we feel vibrant and strong. The energy of the river is high and joyful. The next, a cold or a sickness comes, and the current becomes sluggish and heavy. We resist this, we fight it. We feel that health is the normal state, and sickness is an unwelcome intruder, but both are simply currents in the same river. The energy of youth inevitably flows into the landscape of middle age, and that too flows onward into the quiet estuary of old age. We spend so much energy trying to stop this current, to preserve the reflection of our youth in the mirror, yet this is like trying to command the river to freeze. The river simply smiles at our efforts and continues to flow. The same is true for the world within us, the restless currents of our minds and hearts. Our emotions are the river's weather, a moment of pure joy, a promotion at work, the laughter of a loved one, feels like a brilliant, sunlit patch of water. We desperately try to cup this water in our hands, to hold on to it forever. But it slips through our fingers, not because we are unlucky, but simply because the river flows on. Then a storm comes, a disappointment, a harsh word, a loss. The water turns dark and turbulent with sadness or anger. We immediately brace ourselves, we build a dam, we try to push the feeling away, to deny its existence. We believe that if we ignore the storm, it will disappear. But the pressure only builds behind our dam of resistance. The wise person understands that the sunlit patches and the storm clouds are both part of the river's nature. They do not try to hold the sunshine, which allows them to enjoy it more fully, without the fear of it ending. They do not try to fight the storm, but instead find shelter within themselves, anchoring their boat until the current calms. They know that this too shall pass. Our thoughts are the same, thousands of them flowing through our consciousness every day. Worries, plans, memories, fantasies, they are like leaves and twigs floating on the surface. We make the mistake of believing we are these leaves. We grasp onto a worry and follow it down a dark whirlpool of anxiety. We latch onto a fantasy and are disappointed when it dissolves. The practice of mindfulness, which we will explore, is the art of sitting on the riverbank and simply watching the leaves float by, without needing to jump in and grab every single one. This river of impermanence carves its path through our relationships as well. We meet people who become our whole world. The initial current of romantic love is thrilling, a powerful rapid that carries us away. We make vows of forever, believing we can freeze this one perfect moment in time. But the river never stops. The rapids may gentle into a deep, wide, peaceful flow of long-term companionship, which is a different kind of beauty, but it is not the same. To constantly demand the return of the rapids is to miss the beauty of the deep water. Friendships shift as our lives take different paths. Our children, who we hold so close, grow and begin to flow down their own tributaries, away from us. This is not a tragedy, this is the law of the river. The pain comes not from the change itself, but from our desperate attempt to build dams around the people we love, to keep them exactly as they are, to prevent them from flowing on their own journey. To love wisely is to love the river in another person, to appreciate their presence now, knowing that all streams eventually find their own way to the great ocean. The fundamental suffering of human life, what the Buddha called dukkha, does not arise from the fact of impermanence. The river is not cruel. The river simply is. The suffering arises from our resistance to it. It is born from our profound and deeply mistaken demand that reality be permanent. Our attachments, our clinging, our desperate need for security, these are the tools we use to build our dams. But the river is patient and its power is absolute. The pressure builds, the anxiety grows, the fear of the dam breaking becomes the constant humming background noise of our lives. And then, inevitably, a crack appears. We lose a job, a relationship ends, our health fails, someone we love dies, the dam shatters, and we are overwhelmed by a tsunami of grief and pain. We blame the river, we blame life, we blame ourselves. But the tragedy was not the flowing water. The tragedy was the foolishness of building a dam in the first place. There is a famous story that illustrates this with heartbreaking beauty. A young woman named Kisa Gotami lived in a village and had one son, whom she adored beyond all measure. He was the sun in her sky, the solid rock upon which she built her happiness. One day, the boy fell ill and died. Kisa Gotami was consumed by a grief so powerful that it broke her mind. She refused to believe he was gone. She clutched his small, lifeless body to her chest and went from door to door, begging for medicine that could bring him back. Some people turned away from her, some pitied her, some thought she was mad. But she would not listen. She was holding back the river with all the force of her love and denial. Finally, a wise man saw her plight and, instead of dismissing her, suggested she go see the Buddha. She ran to the enlightened one, laid her son at his feet, and pleaded for help. The Buddha looked at her with infinite compassion and did not deny her request. He said, "I can help you, but first, you must bring me a single mustard seed from a house in the village where no one has ever lost a child, a spouse, a parent, or a friend." Kisa Gotami's heart soared with hope. A single mustard seed, that was so easy. She began her journey immediately, going from house to house with her precious son in her arms. At the first house, she asked for the seed, and the family was happy to give it to her. But when she asked the vital question, "Has anyone in this house ever known death?" they looked at her sadly and said, "The living are few, but the dead are many. We lost our father just last year." She went to the next house and the next and the next. The story was always the same. "I lost my sister. We lost our youngest child. I lost my beloved wife." House after house, the mustard seed was offered, but the condition could never be met. As the sun began to set, Kisa Gotami sat down, the terrible truth dawning on her. Her grief was not unique. Her loss was not a singular curse. It was the shared, universal inheritance of every living being. Death was not a thief that had singled her out. It was a part of the river's flow for everyone. In that moment of profound realization, her desperate, selfish grief transformed into a deep, compassionate understanding. She gently wrapped her son in a cloth, laid him to rest in the forest, and returned to the Buddha. He simply asked, "Did you bring the mustard seed?" And she replied, "The work of the mustard seed is done. Let me be your disciple." She had stopped fighting the river. She had finally learnt its nature. This is the path to peace. It is not to become passive or uncaring. It is to become a skilled navigator of the river. Instead of a frantic dam builder, we can become a graceful surfer. A surfer does not command the ocean. They study the waves, they respect their power. They learn to move in harmony with them. They are intensely alive, focused, and engaged. When a joyful wave of success or love comes, they ride its crest, savoring every moment of its beauty and energy. But they know it will not last forever, and this knowledge makes the ride all the more precious. When a wave of grief or failure arrives, they do not try to push it back. They learn to dive through it, or to balance on their board with courage and patience, knowing that the wave will pass and the calm water will return. This is the freedom the monk feels. His joy in the starlight is not diminished by the knowledge that the sun will soon rise. His peace is not threatened by the memory of a past storm or the possibility of a future one. He has made his home in the heart of the river itself, finding stability not in permanence, but in the skillful art of flowing with change. Our palace of illusions gives us a false promise of solid ground, but it is built on the edge of this ever-changing water. To find true peace, we must turn away from the palace and learn the ways of the river. And as we watch this constant flow of all things, a deeper question arises. If my body, my thoughts, my feelings, and my world are all changing, all part of the river, then who or what is the I that is watching it all? Is the watcher also just another current in the great, mysterious river of being? We have walked together to the bank of the great river of impermanence. We have seen how everything we can perceive, our bodies, our feelings, our relationships, and the world itself, are all currents in this ceaseless flow. It is a profound realization, yet as we stand on the bank, watching it all go by, a persistent feeling remains. There is still a sense of a watcher, an observer, a stable I who is experiencing this change. We think, I am seeing my body age. I am feeling this sadness. I am watching my thoughts. This feeling of a central, continuous self is the most stubborn illusion of all. It is the king residing in the palace, the captain of our ship, the very center of our universe. And now, we must undertake the most subtle and liberating investigation of all. We must gently turn the light of awareness around and look for this I. We must go in search of the ghost in the machine. This is the journey into the heart of anatta, the truth of no self. Let us begin this search with gentle curiosity, not with aggression. Where does this I reside? The most obvious candidate is the body. Is this body me? We have already seen that the body is a process, a flowing river of cells, not a static thing. Furthermore, we say my body, just as we say my house. The very language we use implies a possessor, an owner that is separate from the possession. If you lose a limb in an accident, are you any less you? Number? The sense of I remains, even as the body changes or diminishes. So, the I cannot be the body itself. It must be something more subtle. Perhaps, then, the I is our feelings. Am I my happiness? Am I my sorrow? Am I my anger? Let us watch them. A feeling of joy arises, perhaps from a beautiful sunset. It fills our being, warm and expansive. For a moment, it feels like this is who we are. But the sun sets, the moment passes, and the feeling of joy subsides. Then, a feeling of sadness may arise from a memory. It too feels all-consuming, a heavy, dark cloak. If I were my joy, I would have vanished when the joy left. If I am my sadness, who was I before it arrived? Feelings are like the weather passing through the sky. They are temporary visitors, states that arise and pass away within awareness. They are events that happen to us. They cannot be the continuous, stable I we are searching for. Well then, what about our thoughts, our perceptions, our ideas? Surely, I am my thoughts. Our mind seems to be the very seat of our identity. But let's look closer. A thought appears. I need to call my mother. Where did it come from? Where does it go when it vanishes? A perception arises. The sound of rain on the window pane. It exists for a moment, and then it is gone. Our opinions, our beliefs, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are, these seem more solid. I am a kind person. I am not good at math. But are they? Have your opinions not changed over the course of your life? Did you not once hold a belief that you now see was mistaken? These mental formations, as they are called in Buddhism, are more like habits, like well-worn grooves in the mind. They are conditioned patterns, not a permanent, unchanging essence. They are also just currents in the river, some faster and more turbulent than others, but currents nonetheless. So we have looked in the body, in our feelings, and in our thoughts, and we have not found a solid, stable, independent I. What is left? Perhaps it is the awareness itself, the consciousness that knows all these things. But even here, wisdom reveals a subtle dependency. Consciousness does not exist in a vacuum. It arises with an object. I consciousness arises when there is a sight and an I. Ear consciousness arises when there is a sound and an ear. Mind consciousness arises when there is a thought and a mind. It is like the light from a lamp. The light only becomes apparent when it falls upon an object. It does not exist independently from the things it illuminates. So even this background of awareness is not a solid, separate thing, but a constantly arising and falling process of knowing, intrinsically linked to the known. After this search, we are left with a profound mystery. We have looked for the king in every room of the palace, and he is nowhere to be found. And yet, we feel his presence. This is the ghost of the self. The sense of I is not a solid entity, but an emergent property, a beautiful, shimmering illusion created by the rapid coming together of all these changing processes. The body, feelings, perceptions, mental habits, and consciousness. Like the flickering frames of a film that create the illusion of a moving character on the screen, the rapid interplay of these 5 aggregates creates the illusion of a solid, continuous self. The self is not a thing, but a story. It is a verb, not a noun. It is a process of selfing, a constant, habitual act of identifying with these passing phenomena. There is a masterful story that makes this clear. Long ago, a Greek king in India named Milinda, a man of sharp intellect and logic, sought out a renowned Buddhist sage named Nagasena to debate this very point. The king, intending to challenge the monk, asked his name. The sage replied, "I am known as Nagasena, Your Majesty. However, this is just a name, a designation. There is no permanent person to be found here." King Milinda, clever and proud, smiled. He thought he had the monk trapped. He gestured to his own magnificent chariot and said, "Venerable sir, if there is no person, then who are we speaking to? And if I may ask, what is this chariot? Is the pole the chariot? Are the wheels the chariot? Is it the axle, the frame, the reins, or the yoke?" The king went on, deconstructing the chariot part by part, and with each question, Nagasena calmly replied, "No, Your Majesty." Finally, the king laughed and said, "Then, sir, there is no chariot. You are speaking a falsehood." Quo. Nagasena remained perfectly serene. He did not argue. He simply asked the king, "Your Majesty, how did you arrive here today? Did you not come in a chariot?" He then turned the king's own logic back on him. Is it the combination of the wheels, the axle, the pole, the frame, and all the other parts that you call a chariot? The king, suddenly understanding, conceded, "Yes, venerable sir. It is on the basis of all these parts coming together that we have the convenient name, the concept, of a chariot." Nagasena's eyes shone with wisdom as he delivered the final, clarifying insight. "Precisely, Your Majesty." And in exactly the same way, it is on the basis of this body, these feelings, these perceptions, these mental habits, and this consciousness all coming together, that we have the convenient name, the concept of Nagasena. In the ultimate sense, there is no permanent person to be found. In that moment, the king saw with perfect clarity. The self he had always believed to be so solid was, like his chariot, a functional whole composed of ever-changing parts. A useful concept, but not an ultimate reality. Why is this realization so liberating? Why is it the secret to the monk's profound peace? Because this solid, separate self is the source of almost all our fear and suffering. It is this I that feels offended by criticism. It is this I that is terrified of failure. It is this I that swells with pride and clings to success. It is this I that dreads its own future non-existence, its own death. It is the central character in the drama that we call our life, the hero we must constantly defend, promote, and protect. It is an exhausting, lifelong job. When we see, even for a moment, that this self is a ghost, a convenient fiction, the whole drama collapses. The burden lifts. Who is there to be insulted? Just a passing thought, a fleeting feeling of discomfort. Who is there to fail? Just a collection of actions that did not produce the desired result, an opportunity to learn and try differently. Who is there to die? Only a temporary arrangement of processes that will one day gently disassemble and return to the great flow of the universe. The terror of annihilation is replaced by a sense of homecoming. The frantic need to defend the tiny fortress of me dissolves. This does not lead to a feeling of emptiness or worthlessness. Quite the opposite. When the hard, artificial boundaries of the self become soft and porous, we experience a profound connection to everything else. The line between me and you blurs. The sense of separation between me and the natural world fades. Your joy becomes my joy. Your suffering touches my heart directly. A deep and effortless compassion arises, not as a moral duty, but as a natural consequence of seeing reality as it is. We stop being a lonely island and realize we have always been a part of the vast, interconnected continent of life. This is the deepest peace of the monk sleeping under the stars. He is not a small, fragile self, alone against the vastness of the night. He has become the night. He is the stillness of the air, the patience of the ancient tree, the silent light of the distant galaxies. He is at home everywhere, because he has let go of the idea of a separate self that needs a home. Having seen the palace, the river, and now the ghost, we are ready for the next step. We are ready to learn how to experience this freedom directly, not just as an idea, but as a living reality. We need a tool, an anchor, to steady the mind enough to see these truths clearly in our own experience. That anchor is the simplest, most profound, and most readily available thing we have. It is our own breath. We have journeyed far into the landscape of the mind. We have stood before the palace of illusions, watched the great river of impermanence flow by, and even dared to look for the ghost of the self, only to find it vanishes under our gaze. To see these truths can be unsettling. It can feel as though the very ground beneath our feet has turned to mist. We might ask, if everything I believe to be solid is an illusion, if everything is in flux, what can I hold on to? Where is my home? It is a natural question, and the wisdom of the path provides a beautiful, simple, and profoundly practical answer. To navigate this new and boundless inner world, we are given an anchor. This anchor is not something you need to acquire. It is not a secret mantra or a complex philosophy. It has been with you every moment of your life, from your first cry to this very breath you are taking now. It is the breath itself. This is the practice of anapanasati, the gentle mindfulness of breathing. Think of your mind as a kite and your thoughts as the wind. On most days, the wind is wild and gusty. Your kite of a mind is tossed about relentlessly, dragged into the dark storm clouds of past regrets or flung into the turbulent upper currents of future anxieties. You are pulled along, often without even realizing you have left the ground. The mind spends its life as a time traveler, perpetually lost in the what-if of tomorrow and the if-only of yesterday. But your body, your physical presence, can only exist in one time, in one place. It can only be here, now. The breath is the magical thread that connects the wild kite of the mind to the grounded reality of the body. It is the bridge between the timeless realm of thought and the absolute present tense of physical existence. When you consciously bring your attention to the simple, physical sensation of breathing, you are gently, lovingly pulling on the kite string. You are inviting your mind to come home, to leave the stormy skies of thought and to rest, just for a moment, in the peaceful harbor of the present moment. This is the first step. It is the act of returning. And how do we practice this? The beauty lies in its utter simplicity. There is nothing to force, nothing to achieve. Your body knows how to breathe far better than your thinking mind does. It has been keeping you alive perfectly well, without any conscious help. So the first instruction is to let go of control. You do not need to take a deep breath or a special kind of breath. Simply allow the breath to be as it is. Find a comfortable position, sitting or lying down, whatever feels most at peace. You can gently close your eyes if that feels right for you, or you can leave them softly open with a lowered gaze. Now, simply bring your awareness to the physical sensations of breathing. Notice where you feel the breath most clearly in your body. Perhaps it is the cool touch of the air as it enters your nostrils, and the slightly warmer touch of the air as it leaves. You can rest your entire attention right there, at the very tip of your nose, as if you were a gatekeeper, simply noticing the coming and going. Or perhaps you feel the breath more in the gentle rise and fall of your chest or your abdomen. You can place a hand there if you like, and just feel the gentle rhythm, the body breathing all by itself. Do nothing else, just feel. An in-breath happens, a slight pause, an out-breath happens. You don't need to say the words in and out, just feel the raw sensation. And now, something else will happen. It is absolutely guaranteed. Your mind will wander. A thought will pop up. What should I have for dinner? A sound will catch your attention, the distant hum of traffic. A memory will surface. The kite has been caught by a gust of wind. Here we come to the most important part of the practice. The moment you notice that your mind has wandered is a moment of perfect mindfulness. It is a small victory. There is no need for judgment, no frustration, no feeling that you have failed. That is the old habit of the ego, of the ghost in the machine. Instead, you can even smile inwardly, gently acknowledge where the mind went, thinking, and then, as if you were guiding a lost child by the hand, tenderly and without any force, guide your attention back to the sensation of the breath. This is the entire practice. Staying with the breath is not the goal. The practice is the gentle, patient, and endlessly repeated act of returning. Each time you return your awareness to the breath, you are strengthening a mental muscle. You are building a pathway in the brain for calm, for focus, and for peace. There is a story of a young, eager novice in a monastery who was desperate for enlightenment. His mind, he complained to his master, was like a cage full of frantic monkeys, always chattering, screeching, and fighting. He could not find a moment's peace. He begged his teacher for a powerful, secret technique to subdue his mind. The old master, whose wisdom was as deep as a silent well, simply smiled. He lit a single, thin stick of incense and placed it in a bowl of sand. "I will give you a most profound teaching," he said. "Your task is simple. Sit here and be aware of your breath. Know when the breath is coming in and know when the breath is going out. Do nothing more. Your task is complete when this stick of incense has burned to ash." The young monk was terribly disappointed. This was a beginner's practice, too simple, too basic. But out of respect, he did as he was told. For the first few minutes, it was torture. The monkeys in his mind shrieked louder than ever. He thought about his childhood, about the master's cryptic words, about the ache in his knees. Each time he remembered the instruction and brought his focus back to the simple feeling of the air at his nostrils. It felt futile, but he kept doing it. 10 minutes passed. He noticed a small shift. The screeching of the monkeys had become a little quieter. He kept returning to the breath. 20 minutes passed. He found he could stay with the breath for 3 or 4 cycles before a thought carried him away. The gaps of silence were growing longer. He kept returning. As the incense stick burned down to its final half, something remarkable happened. The monkeys had not been fought or defeated. They had simply grown quiet from lack of attention. The cage of his mind had become a spacious, silent temple, and in that silence, he felt a peace he had never known. When the last wisp of smoke from the incense vanished, the old master returned. "So," he asked, "did you master the secret technique?" The young monk looked up, his eyes clear and bright. "Master," he said, "I discovered the secret. The secret is that there is no secret. There is only the breath and the kindness to keep coming home to it." Cool. This anchor is not just for when you are sitting on a cushion with your eyes closed. It is your portable refuge, your constant companion in the midst of a turbulent life. When a wave of anger or irritation rises in you, triggered by a careless word or a frustrating situation, what is your first impulse? It is to react, to lash out, to defend the ghost of the self. But what if, in that crucial moment before you act, you could remember your anchor? What if you could take just one conscious breath? Inhale, exhale. In that tiny pause, that sacred gap between stimulus and response, you find your freedom. You create a space where wisdom can arise. You give yourself a choice, rather than being a puppet of your own reactivity. When you feel the cold grip of anxiety, the feeling that the world is about to end, what is happening? Your mind is living in a catastrophic future that has not happened and may never happen. Your anchor, the breath, can pull you out of that imaginary hell. Feel the breath in your body, feel your feet on the floor, feel the chair supporting you. This brings you back to the present moment, where 9 times out of 10, you are actually safe. You are here. You are breathing. The simple physical rhythm of the breath tells your nervous system that you are not being chased by a tiger. You are okay. This anchor, this loyal friend, has been waiting for you. It never judges. It never leaves. It only asks for your gentle attention. It is the key that unlocks the door from the prison of your thoughts and leads you into the vast, open space of the present moment. And now that we have this anchor to steady us, we are ready to look with clarity at the surface of the water, to see what is reflected in the mind when it becomes still. We are ready to cultivate the clear mirror of mindfulness. Having found our anchor in the gentle, rhythmic tide of the breath, we have discovered a place of refuge, a small island of calm in the vast ocean of our experience. We can return to this island whenever the winds of thought become too strong. But this island is not just a hiding place, it is a watchtower. Its purpose is not merely to provide safety, but to provide a vantage point from which we can see the weather of our own mind with clarity. When the waters calm, they cease to be a turbulent force that tosses us about, and they become a mirror, capable of reflecting the sky exactly as it is. This is the practice of mindfulness, the art of cultivating a mind that is as clear, spacious, and welcoming as a mirror. Our ordinary state of mind is one of fusion. We are completely merged with the contents of our experience. When a dark cloud of sadness drifts across our inner landscape, we don't just see the cloud, we become it. We say, "I am sad," and our entire world shrinks to the size and color of that cloud. When a jagged thunderhead of anger flashes into being, we declare, "I am angry," and we become the storm, full of lightning and destructive energy. We mistake the weather for the sky. The revolutionary insight of mindfulness is the realization that you are not the cloud, you are not the storm, you are the sky. The sky is the vast, open, limitless awareness in which all weather, patterns, all thoughts, all feelings, all sensations arise and pass away. The sky does not cling to the beautiful, fluffy white clouds of happiness, trying to prevent them from drifting on, nor does it fight or fear the dark clouds of sorrow. It allows them all to be. It gives them space to manifest, to reign if they must, and to eventually dissipate, all without the sky itself being stained, harmed, or changed in any essential way. To practice mindfulness is to learn to rest in this sky-like nature of your own awareness. So how do we do this? How do we untangle ourselves from the clouds? We use a simple and gentle technique, a kind of soft internal noting or labeling. As you rest your attention on the breath, other things will naturally arise. A sound, a physical sensation, a thought, an emotion. Instead of being swept away by them, you can meet them with a gentle, silent whisper of recognition. A plan for tomorrow appears in your mind. Instead of getting lost in the details of the plan, you can simply note, planning. A memory of a past hurt surfaces. You can gently label it, remembering. A feeling of restlessness begins to agitate your body. You can acknowledge it, restlessness. A wave of sadness washes through you. Sadness. This act of naming is not a cold analytical dissection. It is a gesture of compassionate recognition. The label acts like a magic charm. It creates a space between you, the observer, and the thought or feeling being observed. The thought is no longer a reality you are trapped within. It is simply a thought. The emotion is no longer an overwhelming identity. It is simply a feeling. You have moved from being the actor lost in the drama to being the audience, watching the play unfold with compassionate interest. You have taken a step back and remembered that you are the sky, not the cloud. Let me tell you a story about a young monk who was tormented by anger. He was diligent in his meditation, but waves of rage would arise in him seemingly from nowhere, and they would consume him. He tried everything to get rid of his anger. He tried to suppress it, pushing it down with all his might, but it would only burst forth later, stronger than before. He tried to reason with it, arguing with himself about why he shouldn't be angry, but this was like arguing with a wildfire. He felt like a terrible monk, a failure. His mind was not a peaceful temple, but a battlefield. In despair, he went to his wise old teacher. The teacher listened patiently, then said, "My son, you are treating your anger as an intruder, an enemy to be vanquished. This is why it fights back so hard. I want you to try something different. The next time anger comes, I want you to treat it as an honored guest." The young monk was bewildered. An honored guest? But master, it is a monster. The teacher smiled. Your mind is a large house with many rooms. When the guest of anger knocks furiously on your door, do not barricade it. Instead, open the door wide, bow politely and say, "Ah, anger, my old friend, I see you have returned. Please come in, take a seat. You must be tired from your journey." Invite the anger to sit with you. Offer it a symbolic cup of tea by breathing with it. Don't serve it the poison of your stories and justifications. Just offer it the pure water of your calm, mindful attention. Feel its raw energy in your body, the heat, the tension, without judging it or acting on it. Listen to it without believing its every word. Just be a compassionate host to this difficult, pained visitor. Though skeptical, the young monk resolved to try. A few days later, after a perceived slight from another monk, he felt the familiar heat of anger begin to rise. His old instinct was to fight it, but this time he remembered his teacher's words. He took a breath, and in his mind, he pictured himself opening the door. "Ah, there you are, anger. Welcome." He sat with the feeling. He didn't suppress it, he allowed it to be there. He felt the tightness in his jaw, the pounding in his chest. He breathed into these sensations, not to make them go away, but just to be with them. He watched the angry thoughts arise. He had no right, he always does this. And he noted them, judging, blaming. He did not get on the horse of his anger and ride it into battle. He simply stayed in the house, a calm host, while the guest of anger paced and fumed. And then a miracle happened. The anger, having been given space, having been acknowledged without being fed, began to lose its energy. The raging guest became a tired visitor. After some time, it grew quiet, stood up, and left on its own. The monk was left not exhausted from a fight, but in a state of quiet awe. He had not defeated his anger, he had befriended it. He had learned that he was not his anger. He was the spacious, compassionate house in which the anger could come and go. This is the profound shift in relationship that mindfulness offers. Most of us live our lives like someone who has fallen into a powerful river and is being swept downstream, tossed and turned by the currents, convinced that this chaotic, tumbling journey is the entirety of life. The practice of mindfulness is the act of recognizing you are in a river. It is the effort it takes to swim to the side and pull yourself up onto the bank. From the solidity of the bank, you can now watch the river flow by. You can see it all, the powerful currents of obsessive thought, the gentle eddies of pleasant feelings, the dead branches of old memories, the muddy water of confusion. You see it all, but you are no longer being carried away by it. You are no longer drowning, and you realize the goal was never to stop the river. That is impossible and would be a sterile kind of life anyway. The goal was simply to get out of the water and find a place of stability from which to watch. From the bank, you can have a wise relationship with the river. You can appreciate its beauty and power without being its victim. This is true freedom. It is not an empty mind, but a free mind. A mind that is no longer a slave to its own passing contents. It is the clear mirror, reflecting whatever passes before it, without clinging, without resisting, without judgment. And as we sit on this riverbank, developing this clear sight, a new question arises. Now that we can see so clearly, what is the proper way to feel about what we see? When the mirror of our mind reflects our own imperfections, our own pain, and the pain of the world, what quality of heart should we cultivate? This leads us to our next step, the cultivation of a gentle, healing rain for the landscape of our hearts, the practice of loving kindness. We have learned to anchor ourselves in the present moment with the breath. We have polished the mirror of our mind with mindfulness, learning to see our thoughts and feelings with a spacious, non-judgmental clarity. But what is the quality of heart we should bring to what we see in that mirror? When the mirror reflects our own imperfections, our anxieties, our patterns of anger and fear, the old habit is to react with harshness. We meet our flaws with the cold steel of self-criticism. We judge our inner landscape, and we end up feeling fractured and at war with ourselves. The path of wisdom shows us another way. It teaches us that clarity of mind must be balanced with warmth of heart. Once the mirror is clear, we must learn to bathe what it reflects in the gentle, healing sunlight of loving kindness. This is the practice of metta, a soft, life-giving rain for the parched soil of the heart. Metta is a Pali word that translates as unconditional, friendly, and benevolent love. It is not the sentimental, grasping love of romance, nor is it the conditional love we offer only to those who please us. It is a steady, courageous, and boundless goodwill, a sincere wish for the well-being of all. And the practice of cultivating this heart, in a way that might seem radical to many of us, begins with ourselves. There is a simple and profound truth. You cannot offer to others what you do not have yourself. You cannot pour from an empty cup. For most of our lives, we have been taught that focusing on ourselves is selfish. But we have confused true self-care with self-indulgence. We often harbor a relentless inner critic, a harsh judge who catalogues our every mistake and whispers that we are not good enough. We would never dream of speaking to a dear friend in the cruel way we often speak to ourselves. The practice of metta is the antidote. It is the process of learning to become our own best friend. So let us begin this practice together, gently. Find that quiet space within you, the one you have touched through the breath. And now you can offer a few simple, powerful phrases to yourself, like a lullaby for a troubled heart. You don't have to force a feeling. The power is in the sincere intention, the gentle offering of the wish. Silently, inwardly, begin to repeat these phrases. May I be safe. May I be protected from harm. May I be healthy and strong. May my body support me with ease. May I be happy. May I know the joy of a peaceful heart. May I live with ease. May I be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. As you offer these words, notice what happens. You might feel a sense of warmth or softening. You might feel nothing at all. You might even feel a strong resistance, a voice that says, "I don't deserve this." If that voice arises, see it for what it is. It is just another cloud passing through the sky of your awareness. It is the voice of an old habit. Acknowledge it gently. Self-criticism is here. And then, with even more tenderness, return to offering the phrases. May I be safe. You are planting seeds in the garden of your heart. You may not see the flowers overnight, but if you water these seeds with your patient, gentle attention, they will grow. This is not a selfish act. It is the necessary foundation for a truly compassionate life. When your own cup is full of loving kindness, it will naturally overflow to others. There is a powerful story that illustrates that metta is not a weak or passive sentiment, but a force of incredible strength. The Buddha had a cousin named Devadatta, who was consumed by jealousy and wished to usurp his position. One day, Devadatta arranged for a ferocious elephant named Nalagiri to be maddened with alcohol and then released onto the path where the Buddha was walking. The people of the city screamed and fled in terror as this enormous, enraged creature charged down the street, destroying everything in its path, its eyes red with fury. The Buddha's disciples urged him to run, and his faithful attendant, Ananda, tried to shield him with his own body. But the Buddha remained perfectly still and calm, and gently asked Ananda to step aside. He did not see a monster. He looked at the charging elephant, and with the clear mirror of his mind, he saw past the rage to the suffering, the confusion, and the fear that was driving the animal. He did not feel an ounce of fear or hatred. Instead, his heart filled with an immense and powerful compassion. He stood his ground and radiated a wave of pure metta, a silent, powerful wish. May you be free from fear. May you be at peace. The elephant, thundering closer, was suddenly enveloped by this energy, a kindness so vast and unconditional it was unlike anything the creature had ever known. The force of hatred that propelled it forward met a force of love that was infinitely stronger. The elephant's charge slowed, its trumpeting roar quieted. Its trunk, which had been raised to strike, lowered gently. It came to a stop before the Buddha and knelt down, humbled and completely pacified by the sheer, indomitable power of loving kindness. This teaches us that metta is not weakness. It is the greatest protection, for it dissolves hatred at its very source. Once we have begun to fill our own cup, we learn to extend this benevolent wish outwards in ever-expanding circles. After offering metta to yourself, you can bring to mind a benefactor, someone who has been kind to you, a dear friend, a mentor, or a loved one. Picture them clearly in your mind's eye, see their face, feel their presence, and with a full heart, offer them the same wishes. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you live with ease. This part of the practice is usually easy and joyful. It opens the heart and allows the energy of metta to flow freely. The next step stretches the muscle of the heart. You bring to mind a neutral person, someone you neither like nor dislike. Perhaps the person who sells you your newspaper, or someone you see on your daily commute. You know nothing about their struggles or their joys. You see them only as a stranger, and now you try to see them as a human being, just like you, who also wants to be happy and free from suffering. And you offer them the same sincere wishes. May you be safe. May you be happy. This begins to break down the artificial walls of indifference we build around our hearts. Then comes the most challenging and perhaps most transformative stage. You are invited to bring to mind a difficult person, someone with whom you have conflict or resentment. It is wise not to start with the most painful relationship in your life, but someone who causes mild irritation. See this person in your mind. Acknowledge the difficult feelings that arise. And then, as an act of profound courage and self-liberation, you extend the wish of metta to them. May you be happy. May you be free from your suffering. This is not about condoning their harmful actions. It is not about forcing yourself to like them. It is a recognition that their harmful actions likely spring from their own pain, their own confusion, their own inner suffering. Wishing for them to be happy is wishing for them to be free from the very poisons that cause them to harm others. This practice is a gift you give to yourself. It frees you from the prison of your own resentment, from the burden of carrying around the hot coal of anger. Finally, you let your heart expand in all directions. You offer loving kindness to all beings, without exception. To your friends, to your enemies, to strangers, to people in your city, in your country and all over the world, to the animals, to the creatures in the sea and in the sky, to all beings, seen and unseen, near and far. May all beings be safe. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be happy. May all beings live with ease. You become a broadcasting station of pure goodwill, sending out waves of warmth into the universe. You rest in the feeling of a boundless heart, recognizing that at the deepest level, the desire to be happy and free from suffering is the universal thread that connects us all. This is the gentle rain of metta. It is the practice that softens the hard ground of our judgments and resentments. It is the warmth that allows the insights seen in the clear mirror of mindfulness to be integrated with compassion and wisdom. With a stable anchor in the breath, a clear mirror of the mind, and a warm, loving heart, we are now truly equipped. We have the foundational tools to approach the specific challenges of our lives, to learn the art of releasing our burdens, and to truly and finally let go. We are now ready to begin emptying our cup. We have gathered our precious tools for the inner journey. We have the anchor of the breath, giving us stability in the present moment. We have the clear mirror of mindfulness, allowing us to see what is true without distortion. And we have the gentle rain of loving kindness, bringing a warm, compassionate heart to whatever we see in that mirror. With these tools in hand, we feel ready. We feel equipped to face the world and ourselves with a newfound wisdom. But right here, at the threshold of real transformation, we encounter a subtle and powerful obstacle. It is the quiet, confident assumption that we already know. It is the belief that our cup is already full. Each of us carries a cup. This cup is our mind, and throughout our lives we have been diligently filling it. We fill it with facts and figures from our education. We fill it with the hard-won lessons of our personal experiences. We fill it with the strong opinions we have formed, the religious or philosophical beliefs we hold dear, and the cultural norms we have inherited. We are proud of our cup. We hold it up to the light and admire its contents, this rich brew of knowledge that defines who we are. It has served us well, helping us navigate the world, make decisions, and feel a sense of certainty. But a time comes on the spiritual path when we must look at this precious cup and ask a difficult question. Is there any room left? Is there any space for something new, something truly unexpected to enter? A mind that is full of conclusions, a mind that is certain it already has the answers, is a closed system. It cannot learn. It can only endlessly confirm what it already believes. When we listen with a full cup, we are not truly listening. We are filtering. We are comparing what is being said to the contents of our own cup, checking if it matches, looking for flaws, preparing our rebuttal. We are listening not to understand, but to defend. And a mind on the defensive is a mind in a prison of its own making. The danger of this state of knowing it all is that it is a slow and subtle death to the spirit. It smothers the flame of wonder. When you believe you already understand a sunset, you no longer truly see it. It is just another predictable display of atmospheric physics, not a moment of breathtaking, mysterious beauty. When you believe you already know a person, you no longer truly meet them. You meet your accumulated story of them, your judgments and expectations. You miss the living, breathing, ever-changing person standing right in front of you. A life lived with a full cup becomes a life on repeat, a journey through a museum of dead facts, rather than a vibrant, unpredictable adventure. There is no joy of discovery, no thrill of the unknown, and this state creates immense suffering. When the messy, untamable reality of life inevitably fails to conform to the rigid ideas in our cup, we become frustrated, angry, and righteous. We spend our precious energy trying to force the world to fit our ideas, rather than allowing our ideas to be softened and expanded by the world. We are trapped, not by the world, but by the smallness of our own cup. There is a timeless Zen story that captures this truth with perfect, simple elegance. A great university professor, a man renowned for his intellect and his many publications, traveled a long way to visit a wise old Zen master. He came to inquire about the nature of Zen, but in truth, he came to display his own profound understanding, to have it validated, and perhaps to add the wisdom of Zen as another sparkling jewel to his already heavy crown of knowledge. He was welcomed into the master's simple hut. As the master quietly prepared tea, the professor began to speak. He spoke of the books he had read, of the parallels between Zen and Western philosophy, of his own theories on consciousness and reality. He talked and talked, filling the quiet hut with his complex ideas, his brilliant speculations, his intellectual achievements. His cup was not just full, it was overflowing with his own importance. The Zen master listened patiently, a faint, knowing smile on his lips. He said nothing, but picked up the teapot and began to pour tea into the professor's cup. He filled it to the brim. The professor, momentarily pausing his lecture, nodded in thanks, but the master did not stop pouring. The hot brown tea began to overflow the rim, cascading down the side of the delicate porcelain cup, forming a steaming puddle in the saucer. Still, the master kept pouring. The tea spilled out of the saucer and began to trickle across the wooden table. The professor watched this, at first with confusion, and then with growing alarm and irritation. Finally, he could contain himself no longer. "Stop!" he exclaimed. "The cup is full. Can't you see? No more will go in." The master stopped pouring. He placed the teapot down gently. He looked directly into the professor's eyes, not with judgment, but with a deep, calm clarity. "Like this cup," the master said softly, "you are full of your own opinions and speculations. You have come to ask me about Zen, but your mind has no room to receive it. How can I show you anything unless you first empty your cup?" The professor was stunned into silence. For the first time all day, he was not thinking, not analyzing, not speaking. He simply stared at the overflowing cup of tea. In that moment, the master's simple action had done what no amount of debate or philosophy could have done. It had bypassed his formidable intellect and revealed to him the truth of his own condition. He saw his own arrogance, his own closed-mindedness, reflected in that simple, overfilled cup. He was humbled, and in that humbling, a small space was created. He was, at last, ready to learn. This is the invitation for all of us on the path. We must have the courage to empty our cups. This does not mean becoming ignorant or stupid. It means letting go of our attachment to being right, our addiction to certainty. It means cultivating what is known in Zen as Shoshin, or beginner's mind. A beginner's mind is a mind that is empty, open, and ready for anything. It is free from the ruts of expertise and the arrogance of experience. It is the mind of a child, full of curiosity and wonder. We can practice this in our daily lives. When you are in conversation, especially with someone you disagree with, can you listen with the sole intention of understanding, without planning your counter-argument? Can you approach a routine task, like washing the dishes, as if you have never done it before, feeling the warm water, seeing the soap bubbles, hearing the sound of the plates? Can you look at your partner, your child, or a close friend, and for a moment, let go of the thick storybook of your history with them, and just see the person who is here with you now, fresh and new? To practice beginner's mind is to choose humility over pride, curiosity over certainty. It is a profound act of letting go. We release the heavy burden of having to know all the answers. We open ourselves to the mystery and the magic of the present moment. It is only from this state of open, empty receptivity that true wisdom can arise. It is only when our cup is empty that it can be filled with the living water of direct experience. But as we stand here, with our newly emptied cup ready to receive, another subtle danger presents itself. What happens when we start to fill our cup with all this new spiritual knowledge? How do we prevent these beautiful teachings from becoming just another set of rigid opinions? This leads us to our next crucial lesson, the wisdom of knowing that the raft that carries us across the river is not the shore itself. With great courage, we have begun the process of emptying our cup. We have seen the wisdom in setting aside our rigid opinions, our hardened certainties, and the pride we take in what we think we know. Into this newly created space of humility and openness, we begin to pour the beautiful, life-giving nectar of the path. We learn the methods of mindfulness. We practice the art of loving kindness. We study the profound truths of impermanence and no-self. This new knowledge feels clarifying, liberating. It is like cool water to a person who has been wandering in a desert of confusion. But here, another subtle trap awaits us. A danger so clever it can go unnoticed for years. The ego, the ghost of the self, having been deprived of its old attachments, can perform a cunning trick. It can begin to build a new identity, a new palace, out of spirituality itself. We can become attached to the very things that were meant to free us. There is an old Zen saying, "The teaching is a finger pointing to the moon. Do not mistake the finger for the moon." The teachings, the scriptures, the words of any great master are only pointers. Their sole purpose is to direct our attention towards a direct, personal experience of truth, an experience that is beyond all words and concepts. That direct experience of liberation, of peace, of reality as it is that is the moon. But we, as human beings who love to think and analyze, can easily become fascinated with the finger. We can study the finger from every angle. We can measure its length, debate its precise shape, compare it to other fingers. We can become world-renowned experts on the finger. We can argue with those who follow a different finger, convinced that our finger is the most accurate, the most elegant pointer to the moon. We can spend our entire lives in heated, intellectual debate about the finger, all the while completely forgetting to do the one thing the finger was meant for, to look up and see the glorious, silent, luminous moon for ourselves. Mistaking the concepts for the experience is the first way we begin to cling. This clinging takes many forms. It is a kind of spiritual materialism, where we begin to accumulate spiritual ideas and experiences just as we once accumulated possessions and status. We might become proud of our meditation practice. The ego, which once said, "Look at my expensive car," now says, "Look at how long I can sit in meditation. Look at the profound states of calm I can achieve." The practice, which was designed to dissolve the ego, has been hijacked and turned into a new, shiny ornament for it. We might become attached to a particular teacher or a particular tradition, believing it to be the one and only true path. Our minds, which we worked so hard to empty, become full once more, this time with a new set of dogmas, a new us versus them mentality. We look down on other paths, other practices, forgetting that there are many different rafts designed to cross the very same river. The open-hearted beginner's mind is lost, replaced by the certainty of the new believer. The form replaces the essence. We become more concerned with the exact ritual, the correct posture, the proper chanting, than with the qualities of wisdom and compassion these forms were designed to cultivate. The Buddha himself, with his profound understanding of the human mind, foresaw this danger with perfect clarity. He offered his disciples a simple, unforgettable parable to guard against it. He asked them to imagine a person on a journey who comes to the edge of a vast and treacherous body of water. The shore on this side is dangerous, filled with fear and uncertainty, but the far shore, visible in the distance, is safe, peaceful, and secure. There is no bridge to cross, no ferry to take. The traveler, being resourceful and determined, does not give up. They gather reeds and sticks, branches and leaves, and with great effort, they bind them all together to construct a simple raft. Then, relying on this raft, paddling with their hands and their feet, they struggle against the currents, and finally, after a long and difficult journey, they arrive safely on the far shore. The Buddha then posed the crucial question to his monks. Now that this person is safely on the far shore, he asked, what should they do with the raft? This raft has been so immensely helpful, so instrumental in their salvation, out of gratitude and attachment. Should they now hoist it upon their shoulders and carry it with them as they continue their journey on dry land? The monks replied, as one, "Of course not, Lord. That would be foolish. The raft was for crossing over, not for carrying. A wise person would moor the raft on the bank or push it back into the water for another traveler to use, and then they would continue their journey, unburdened and free." The Buddha smiled. In exactly the same way, he concluded, "I have taught the Dhamma, the path and the teachings, as being like a raft. It is for the purpose of crossing over from the shore of suffering to the shore of liberation. It is not for the purpose of clinging to and carrying around." This simple story is one of the most liberating teachings in all of spirituality. It tells us that every practice, every tool we have discussed is part of the raft. The anchor of the breath, the clear mirror of mindfulness, the gentle rain of loving kindness, the understanding of impermanence and no self. These are the logs and vines that make up our life-saving vessel. They are absolutely essential. Without the raft, we would be stuck on the shore of fear, drowned by the waters of our own confusion. We must build it with diligence and use it with skill, but we must never forget its purpose. It is a tool. It is a vehicle. It is not the destination. The goal of the journey is not to become an expert raft builder, nor is it to worship the raft. The goal is to get to the other shore. The goal is freedom. When we cling to the raft, we remain burdened. We may be on the far shore, but we are not truly free to explore it if we are carrying a heavy, awkward raft on our backs. The monk sleeping peacefully under the stars is not analyzing the raft. He is not mentally reciting the instructions for how it was built. He has arrived. He is living the freedom that is the result of the journey. His peace is a light, unburdened peace. This is a profound invitation to all of us. Use the teachings, cherish them, practice them with your whole being. They are your lifeline, but hold them lightly. Do not turn them into a new prison of dogma. Do not allow your ego to claim them as a new possession. The point is not to become a good Buddhist or a master meditator. The point is to become a free human being. And when a teaching has served its purpose, when it has carried you across a particular inner obstacle, have the courage to set it down and walk on, unencumbered. For the true journey begins where the raft is left behind. Having learned to empty our cup of old ideas, and now to hold the new teachings lightly like a raft, we are ready to apply this profound attitude of letting go to some of the heaviest burdens we carry. the ghosts that are not a part of any raft, but are chains from our own past. We begin with the heavy, cold chain of resentment and the key that can unlock it: forgiveness. We have learnt to hold our knowledge lightly, to see our most cherished spiritual practices as a raft, a tool to be used for crossing over and then set aside. This is a profound lesson in non-attachment. But now, we must turn our attention to the other things we carry on our backs, burdens that are not useful rafts, but are instead the heavy, jagged stones of past hurts, gathered along a journey we cannot seem to leave behind. Of all these stones, the heaviest and most poisonous is the stone of resentment, the inability to forgive. It is the anchor that moors us to the shore of suffering, long after we have learned how to sail. There is a powerful teaching that describes resentment like this. To hold a grudge against another is like grasping a hot coal with the intention of one day throwing it at them. We wait for the right moment, the perfect opportunity for vengeance or vindication. But while we wait, who is being burned? The person who hurt us may be miles away, living their life completely unaware of our turmoil. Yet we sit here day after day, our own hand, our own heart, being seared and scarred by the fire of our own anger. We are the sole victims of our own refusal to let go. This is the tragic paradox of resentment. In our desire to see another suffer for what they have done, we subject ourselves to a continuous, self-inflicted torment. The original wound may have been a single event in the past, but our refusal to forgive turns it into a chronic condition, a wound we reopen every single day by replaying the story, feeding the grievance, and keeping the coal burning bright. It is here that we must be incredibly clear about what forgiveness is and what it is not. The word itself can be so loaded, so misunderstood. Forgiveness is not a justification for the harm that was done. It is not saying, what you did was okay. The harmful act was not okay. Forgiveness is not about condoning cruelty or injustice. It is not about forgetting, for the mind may never forget the event. And most importantly, it is not necessarily about reconciling with the person who harmed you. It does not mean you must trust them again or allow them back into your life, especially if they remain a source of harm. Forgiveness is not a gift you grudgingly give to another person. Forgiveness is the most powerful and courageous gift you give to yourself. It is a profound act of self-love. It is the conscious and deliberate decision to stop allowing the events of the past to control the peace of your present. As long as you are bound by hatred, you are emotionally chained to the person who hurt you. You give them free rent in the most precious real estate you own, your own mind. Forgiveness is taking up a pair of golden scissors and cutting that chain. It is a declaration that your freedom and your peace of mind are more valuable to you than the bitter satisfaction of being right about how you were wronged. It is the moment you decide to drop the hot coal, not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve to have your hand back, unburned and free. There is a simple Zen story that illuminates this with piercing clarity. Two monks, one senior and one much younger, were on a long pilgrimage. They traveled in silence for many hours until they came to a river where the current was swift and the water was high. Standing at the river's edge was a beautiful young woman in a fine silk kimono, hesitating, afraid to cross for fear of ruining her clothes and being swept away. The two monks had taken strict vows never to make physical contact with a woman. The young monk, seeing the situation, was flustered. He thought of his vows, of the rules, of what was proper. He stood there, conflicted and unsure. The senior monk, however, assessed the situation in a single glance. Without a word, he walked up to the young woman, gracefully lifted her into his arms, and carried her across the turbulent river. He set her down gently on the far bank. She bowed in gratitude, and he simply nodded and continued on his journey. The young monk was speechless with shock and outrage. He quickly crossed the river himself and hurried to catch up with his master. For the next several hours, he walked behind him in a silent fury. His mind was a storm of judgment. How could he do that? He is supposed to be a great master, yet he broke his sacred vows. He touched that woman. What a hypocrite. What must she have thought? What will people say if they saw? With every step, the weight of his anger and resentment grew heavier. He replayed the scene again and again, each time adding another layer of righteous indignation. The sun was beginning to set when he finally could not bear the weight of it any longer. He rushed up beside the senior monk and burst out, "Master, I cannot stay silent any longer. How could you have done that back at the river? You broke your vows, you touched that woman." The old monk stopped walking. He turned to face the agitated young man, his own face a mask of serene tranquility. He looked at his junior with compassion and said, simply, "Brother, I set that woman down by the riverbank this morning. Are you still carrying her?" This question stops the mind. The physical event was over in moments. It was a simple act of compassion. But the young monk had chosen to carry it. He was not carrying the woman, he was carrying the story of the woman. He was carrying his judgment, his anger, his attachment to the rules. He was burning his own heart with the hot coal of his own creation. How many of us are doing the same? How many ancient hurts, slights, and betrayals are we still carrying with us, long after the event has passed? The person who was unkind to us in school, the partner who betrayed our trust, the parent who didn't understand us. We believe we are carrying the memory of what they did. But in reality, we are carrying our own reaction, our own story, our own pain right here, in this present moment. Letting go of this burden is the essence of forgiveness. It is an internal process of releasing the story. With the clarity of mindfulness, we can begin to see the story for what it is, a collection of thoughts arising now, and a collection of painful feelings in the body, arising now. The event is not happening now. The suffering is, and that suffering is being generated by our own minds clinging to the past. Using the gentle rain of loving kindness, we can offer compassion to that wounded part of ourselves. We can acknowledge the pain without becoming the pain. We can say to that younger version of ourselves, "I see your hurt. I am here with you now. You are safe now." We learn to parent the wounded child within us, rather than endlessly blaming the person who caused the wound. We shift our focus from the perpetrator to our own healing. This is how we reclaim our power. We realize we are not our wounds. We are the awareness that is capable of holding those wounds with a healing, loving presence. Forgiveness is dropping the story. It is dropping the hot coal. It is putting the woman down on the riverbank and walking on, light and unburdened, into the freedom of the present moment. And as we learn to unchain ourselves from the prisons of the past, we notice our minds have another favorite destination, another way to create shackles for us, not from memory, but from imagination. We must now learn to release the heavy burden of a future that has not yet arrived. We have worked with great tenderness to unchain ourselves from the past, to set down the hot coal of resentment and walk on with a free and forgiving heart. But the mind, in its restless and clever way, has another favorite destination, another phantom world in which to trap us. No sooner have we let go of the ghost of what has been, than the mind leaps over the sacred ground of the present moment entirely, and flies into the 1,000 branching pathways of what is yet to come. Here, in this imaginary landscape of the future, it builds a new kind of prison, the shimmering, transparent, yet utterly exhausting prison of anxiety. Our mind is a magnificent story generator. It is a biological marvel, designed by evolution to anticipate threats and solve problems in order to keep us safe. But in our modern world, where tigers are no longer lurking in the bushes, this threat detection system often goes into overdrive. It becomes a relentless what-if machine. We plant a single seed of uncertainty into the fertile soil of our minds. An upcoming exam, a doctor's visit, a difficult conversation. our financial future. And the machine immediately begins its work, watering this seed with an endless stream of catastrophic possibilities. What if I fail the exam? What if the news from the doctor is bad? What if they react with anger? What if I don't have enough? Each of these what-if scenarios, though purely imaginary, triggers a very real response in our bodies. The heart beats faster, the muscles tense, the stomach churns. Our nervous system does not know the difference between a real tiger and a vividly imagined one. And so we live our days in a state of low-grade and sometimes high-grade battle readiness, fighting phantoms of our own creation, exhausting our precious life force in a war against a future that does not exist. We trade the tangible reality of this present moment for the stressful illusion of 1,000 possible tomorrows. The antidote to this self-inflicted suffering is both simple and profound. It is the realization that the only power you have to shape the future is found in the quality of your attention right now. The future is not a fixed destination we are hurtling towards. It is a house that has not yet been built, and it is constructed, brick by brick, out of the raw material of our present moments. If you want to build a strong and beautiful house, you cannot worry about laying the bricks for the roof when you are still working on the foundation. Your only task, the only task that matters, is to lay the single brick that is in your hand, right here, right now, with as much care, focus, and presence as you can muster. A house built of thousands of mindfully laid bricks will be a strong and beautiful house. A life built of thousands of mindfully lived moments will be a good life. Worrying about the future is like trying to build the house in your head. It accomplishes nothing and distracts you from the vital task at hand, the task of laying today's brick well. In fact, by filling the present moment with the static of anxiety, we lay our present moment bricks carelessly, thus ironically creating the very unstable future we fear. The most practical and effective way to prepare for the future is to forget about it entirely and to inhabit the present moment with your whole being. There is a timeless parable that Jesus told about a rich farmer whose land had produced a magnificent, bountiful harvest, far more than he had ever dreamed of. Looking at his overflowing fields, he did not feel peace. He felt anxiety. His mind immediately leaped into the future. He looked at his barns and thought, "These are too small. What will I do? I have no place to store my crops." He became agitated, consumed by the problem of the future. Then he came up with a grand plan. "This is what I will do," he decided. "I will tear down my old barns and build bigger, grander ones. I will store all my wheat and my goods in them." And then his mind spun an even more elaborate fantasy of a perfect future. "And after that is all done, I will say to my soul, 'Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. You have earned your rest. Now relax, eat, drink, and be merry.'" He was living entirely in this imagined paradise of future security, a time when all his work would be done and all his worries would be over. But that very night, as he slept, dreaming of his giant barns, a voice came to him. The parable calls it the voice of God. "You fool," the voice said. "This very night, your life is being demanded of you, and all the things you have prepared, all your great barns and stored grains, whose will they be now?" He had spent the final, precious currency of his present moments planning for a future he would never live to see. He traded the reality of his present abundance for the illusion of future security, and in doing so, he lost everything. This story teaches us to distinguish wisely between planning and worrying. To plan is a skillful, present moment activity. It is the farmer wisely assessing his fields and arranging for the harvest. It is looking at the map before you begin the journey. You do what you can, you prepare wisely, using the intelligence and foresight available to you now, and then you let go. To worry, on the other hand, is the useless mental churn that happens after the planning is done. It is the farmer, after the barns are built, staying up all night, worrying if there might be a fire or a flood, or if thieves might break in. It is trying to mentally control 1,000 variables that are and always will be outside of your control. At the root of anxiety is our desperate human need to control the uncontrollable. We want a guarantee from life that everything will be okay, but life offers no such guarantees. The only constant, as we have learned, is change. Peace of mind comes not from gaining control over the future, but from gracefully relinquishing our demand for it. It is about cultivating a deep and abiding trust, not a blind faith that nothing bad will ever happen, but a trust in our own resources, a trust in our own capacity to meet whatever life brings when it arrives. We trust that the same awareness, the same courage, the same compassion that is available to us now will be available to us then. We learn to dance with uncertainty rather than trying to nail the future to the floor. So when you feel the cold tendrils of anxiety begin to creep into your mind, you can use your tools. Come back to the anchor of the breath. Feel the solid reality of your body, here, now. Use the clear mirror of mindfulness to see the anxious thoughts for what they are. Label them: worrying, or catastrophizing. See them not as prophetic truths, but as clouds passing through the sky of your mind. Do not argue with them, do not engage them. Simply let them go and return your attention to the solid ground of the present. Feel your feet on the floor. Hear the sounds in the room. Taste the tea in your cup. Your life is not in a hypothetical tomorrow. Your life is only, and ever, right here. Freedom from the past came from realizing we could drop the stories of what was. Freedom from the future comes from realizing we can drop the stories of what might be. We have learned to release these great burdens. We are becoming more and more established in the peace of the present. And with this newfound stability, we are ready to deepen our seeing, to look beyond our own personal stories and to perceive the intricate, beautiful, and profound way in which we are connected to everything and everyone else. We are ready to explore the great web of interconnection, having journeyed inward to release the heavy burdens of the past and the anxious ghosts of the future. We find ourselves standing on the firm, quiet ground of the present moment. From this place of newfound stability, we can begin to look outward again, but with new eyes that have been washed clean by mindfulness. And when we look with these clear eyes, the world begins to reveal a secret, magical quality we had never noticed before. The hard, sharp lines that we once used to divide the world into separate, isolated things begin to soften, to blur, and to dissolve. We begin to see that the universe is not a collection of disconnected objects, but a single, vast, intricate, and living web of connection. This is the profound truth of interbeing. This beautiful word, given to us by the venerable Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, is a key that unlocks a new reality. It tells us that to be is always to interbe. Nothing in the entire cosmos exists by itself. Everything coexists. Everything relies on everything else for its existence. Let us explore this together, not as a difficult philosophy, but through a simple object. Imagine in your mind's eye a single blank sheet of paper. It seems so ordinary, so self-contained. But if we look deeply, with the eyes of mindfulness, the whole universe reveals itself within it. Can you see the cloud in this sheet of paper? Look deeply. Without a cloud, there can be no rain. Without the rain, the trees cannot grow. And without the trees, we can make no paper. So the cloud, which seems so far away in the sky, is right here, an essential part of this paper. And can you see the sunshine? The sun's light and warmth are vital for the tree to perform photosynthesis, to transform light into life. Without the sun, the forest would not exist. So the brilliant, distant sun is also here, woven into the very fabric of this paper. And look again, see the logger who swung the axe to cut the tree, his strength, his sweat, his need to provide food for his family, are all contained in this paper. And the wheat that became the flour for his bread, and the farmer who grew the wheat, and the earth that nourished it, they are all here too. The truck driver who transported the logs, the people who worked in the paper mill, the miner who dug the ore to make the steel for the machines, their lives, their stories, are all invisibly present. This sheet of paper is not a single thing. It is empty of a separate, independent self, but it is full of the entire cosmos. If we were to remove the sun, or the cloud, or the logger, or the earth, this sheet of paper could not exist. Now let us turn this same gentle, penetrating gaze upon ourselves. We have this strong feeling of being a separate self, an independent I inside this skin, looking out at a world that is not me. But is this true? Let us look deeply. Where are your parents? They are not just in your memories. Their DNA, their very substance, is flowing in your veins right now. The particular shape of your hands, the color of your eyes, the tendencies of your character, your parents, and all your ancestors are alive in you in this present moment. You are a continuation of them. And what of the meal you ate today? The carrots, the rice, the water, where are they now? They are in the process of becoming your cells, your energy, your thoughts, the sunshine that ripened the fruit, the rain that swelled the grain, the farmer who tended the fields. They are all becoming you. You are, quite literally, eating the cosmos and turning it into consciousness. Think of the air you are breathing in this very moment. As you inhale, you are taking in the oxygen that was just exhaled as carbon dioxide by a nearby tree. The tree, in turn, is breathing in what you breathe out. There is a constant, intimate, and life-giving conversation happening between your lungs and the forest. You are with the trees. And what of your thoughts, your ideas, your language? Did you invent them? Number. They have come from your teachers, from the books you have read, from the culture you live in, from conversations you have had with friends, and even from the difficult words spoken by those you consider enemies. Every person you have ever met has left a little piece of themselves inside you, shaping who you are in this moment. Just like the sheet of paper, when we look deeply at ourselves, we cannot find a solid, separate, independent self. What we find instead is the entire universe, flowing in and through this temporary, beautiful pattern we call me. We are empty of a separate self, but we are full of everything. To see this, to truly feel it in your bones, is to be transformed. The painful illusion of being a small, isolated ego struggling against a vast and indifferent world begins to dissolve. The feeling of loneliness, which is one of our deepest afflictions, cannot survive this insight. How can you be lonely when the entire universe is your body? How can you feel separate when you are intimately connected to everything and everyone? This realization is the true source of compassion. When you see that you enter with another person, you understand that their suffering is your suffering, and their happiness is your happiness. Harming another being, whether human or animal, becomes an illogical act, like your left hand deliberately striking your right hand. It is an act of self-injury. Kindness, generosity, and compassion are no longer moral duties to be followed. They become the most natural and spontaneous expressions of this profound understanding. They are the logical response to the way things truly are. This vision also transforms our relationship with our planet. When we see the Earth not as a dead rock from which we extract resources, but as our larger self, our life support system with whom we then our actions change. Polluting a river is seen for what it is, poisoning our own bloodstream. Destroying a forest is cutting off our own supply of breath. An ecological consciousness arises naturally, not out of fear or guilt, but out of a deep and abiding love for this planetary body that nourishes and sustains us all. We see that every action we take, every word we speak, every thought we think ripples out into this great interconnected web. It affects everything. And because we are part of the web, it inevitably ripples back and affects us. This is not a burden, but a source of profound empowerment. It means that our small, everyday acts of mindfulness and kindness matter. A gentle word, a patient ear, a simple act of generosity, these are not insignificant. They are contributions to the healing of the entire web. They are how we participate, consciously and lovingly, in the great unfolding of the cosmos. The peaceful monk sleeping under the stars embodies this truth. His peace is not just a quiet mind, it is a felt sense of belonging. He does not feel like a tiny, vulnerable creature sleeping under a vast, empty sky. He feels his breath interbreathing with the gentle night wind. He feels his body interbeing with the solid, patient earth beneath him. He feels his quiet consciousness intershining with the light of the most distant stars. He has dissolved the boundary between self and universe, and in doing so, has found the ultimate home. Having gazed outward into this silent, shimmering web of connection, we can now appreciate the profound wisdom found in its apparent opposite, the deep, resonant power of intentional silence. From the cosmic, we now turn to the intimate, to listen to what can only be heard when the world outside and the world within finally becomes still. We have gazed outward into the silent, shimmering web of interbeing, realizing that our connection to all things is a truth that lies deeper than words. To truly feel this connection, to hear the subtle music of the universe, we must now learn to cultivate its primary medium. We must learn to become quiet. Our modern world is a conspiracy against silence. We live submerged in a constant, churning ocean of noise. It is not just the audible noise of traffic and construction, but the invisible, incessant noise of information and stimulation. Our phones ping and buzz, demanding our attention. News feeds update by the second, feeding us a diet of urgency and alarm. We fill every spare moment, every gap in our day with podcasts, with music, with the endless scroll of social media. We have become, in a way, afraid of silence. We are afraid of what we might find there, in the unplugged, unstimulated quiet. We fear that in the silence, we will have to finally meet ourselves. And so, we keep the noise machine running, distracting ourselves into a state of perpetual exhaustion, our minds fragmented, our spirits shallow. The path of wisdom invites us to engage in a radical act of rebellion, the act of intentionally cultivating silence. This is not just an empty absence of noise. It is a rich, fertile, and powerful state, known as noble silence. This is not the tense, awkward silence of people who have nothing to say to each other. It is a vibrant, alive silence, a conscious choice to stop polluting our inner and outer worlds with needless chatter. It is a silence of the body, a silence of speech, and ultimately, a silence of the mind. In noble silence, we learn to quiet the restless fidgeting of the body. We learn to move with a gentle, mindful deliberation, and most obviously, we quiet our speech. We stop talking unless our words are true, kind, and necessary. But the deepest practice is the quieting of the mind itself, the turning down of the volume on our inner narrator, that chattering voice that has been commenting on our lives from the moment we wake up. It is here, in this profound inner stillness, that the real magic happens. When the clamor of the world and the chatter of the ego subside, we begin to hear other, subtler voices. We start to hear the whisper of our own intuition, a deep knowing that is often drowned out by the noise of our analytical minds. We begin to discern the true needs of our heart, which are often very different from the loud, superficial wants promoted by the world around us. In the quiet, we can feel the parts of ourselves that are hurt and in need of healing, parts we have been too busy to notice. It is in the silence that the tangled knots of our problems often seem to gently unravel all by themselves. A creative insight, a solution to a difficult dilemma, can arise with effortless clarity, not from forceful thinking, but from a state of receptive, spacious listening. Silence is not an emptiness to be feared. It is the fertile ground from which all true wisdom grows. Imagine a monastery nestled high in the mountains, where for 1 week each year, a group of people gather for a retreat centered on the practice of noble silence. From the first evening, all talking ceases. For the first day or two, it is often a kind of torture. The external silence has the paradoxical effect of making the internal noise seem deafeningly loud. The mind, starved of its usual distractions, rebels. It churns with endless thoughts, worries, plans, and judgments. The participants feel awkward around each other, unsure how to communicate. The silence feels heavy, empty, and isolating. But then, slowly, a shift occurs. As they persist in the practice, the inner storm begins to calm. With no need to perform, to be witty, to have an opinion, they begin to relax into a state of simple being. They start to truly see each other for the first time. A shared smile across the dining hall, a nod of understanding, the simple act of holding a door open for another. These small, silent gestures become acts of profound communication, more intimate and meaningful than hours of conversation. They begin to hear the world again. They hear the sigh of the wind in the pine trees, the cry of a distant hawk, the crunch of their own footsteps on a gravel path. These simple sounds become a rich and beautiful symphony. And as the outer and inner noise subsides, deeper things begin to surface. Long-buried memories arise, not to haunt them, but to be held in the compassionate space of silence and finally be released. Complicated life problems suddenly appear simple, their solutions obvious. A deep sense of connection, the interbeing we spoke of, is no longer an abstract idea but a palpable feeling. They feel their shared humanity, their shared breath, their shared presence in this quiet space, and they realize that the most important communication happens heart to heart, in the silent space beyond words. When the retreat ends and the silence is finally broken, the first spoken words often feel jarring, almost like a violation of the sacred peace they have cultivated. They leave not just rested but transformed, having learned that silence is not an absence, but a profound and nourishing presence. This practice of noble silence naturally leads to the cultivation of right speech when we return to our daily lives. Having experienced the beauty and nourishment of quiet, we become far more discerning about the words we choose to speak. We begin to treat our words as precious, powerful things, not to be scattered about carelessly. Before speaking, we can ask ourselves the 4 gatekeeping questions. Is what I am about to say true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Is it beneficial? If a statement does not pass through these 4 gates, we might choose the wiser, more compassionate path of remaining silent. We begin to withdraw our energy from the draining and toxic habits of gossip, complaining, slander, and idle chatter. We realize these are just forms of noise pollution that disturb our own peace and the peace of those around us. We also learn that silence itself can be the most eloquent and powerful form of communication. When a friend is in pain, our quiet, listening presence, our willingness to simply be with them in their suffering without trying to fix it, is often a far greater gift than a stream of well-intentioned advice. When we are in a heated argument, the wisest course is often to stop adding fuel to the fire, to meet the anger with a spacious, receptive silence that allows it to burn itself out. In the presence of great art or breathtaking natural beauty, words are a clumsy intrusion. The most profound response is a silent, reverent awe. The peaceful monk under the stars does not need to listen to a podcast or talk to a friend. He is engaged in the most profound listening of all. He is listening to the great silence of the cosmos, and in that listening, he hears everything. To cultivate silence is to cultivate the space needed to truly hear. It is the ultimate act of emptying our cup of the noise of the world, so that it may be filled with the deep, resonant presence of reality itself. And in this vast, silent, and receptive space, we begin to notice something extraordinary. We begin to see that everything, absolutely everything, has something to teach us. In the great, nourishing silence we have cultivated, we have learned to truly listen. We have quieted the incessant chatter of our own minds and have begun to hear the subtle music of the world around us. And when we listen with this profound, open, and silent attention, a new and startling truth begins to dawn upon us. The entire universe is speaking. Everything is constantly offering us its wisdom. Every event, every encounter, every object, when met with a quiet and curious mind, becomes a teacher. This is the practice of shifting our fundamental question about life. We cease to ask in a state of complaint or victimhood, "Why is this happening to me?" And we begin to ask with a spirit of open inquiry, "What is this here to teach me?" This single change in perspective is a form of spiritual alchemy. It is the secret to transforming the lead of our everyday suffering into the gold of genuine wisdom. Life ceases to be a random series of obstacles and becomes a perfectly designed curriculum for our own awakening. The most challenging, and therefore the most potent, teachers often come to us in human form. Think of the person in your life who most easily provokes your anger or irritation. It might be a co-worker who is consistently critical, a family member who doesn't respect your boundaries, or even the anonymous stranger who drives aggressively in traffic. Our habitual reaction is one of resistance, judgment, and anger. We label them as difficult or wrong, and we expend enormous energy wishing they were different. But with this new perspective, we can see them in a completely different light. This person is not your enemy. They are your unsolicited, and perhaps unwitting, Zen master. They are offering you a free, real-world masterclass in patience, equanimity, and the practice of non-reactivity. On your meditation cushion, it is easy to feel calm and compassionate, but this person is testing your practice in the laboratory of real life. Can you feel the heat of anger arise and not be consumed by it? Can you see your own judgments as they form and choose not to believe them? Can you wish for this difficult person to be free from the suffering that makes them act in such a way? To see the difficult person as a teacher is to transform a source of endless irritation into a precious opportunity for growth. You may even find yourself, in the quiet of your own mind, thanking them for the lesson. Failure is another one of our great, though often feared, teachers. Our culture tells us to avoid failure at all costs, that it is a sign of weakness or inadequacy. The spiritual path teaches the opposite. Failure is an indispensable guide, a teacher of profound humility. When we succeed, our ego tends to puff up. We can become arrogant, complacent, and convinced of our own brilliance. But when we fail, we are brought back down to earth. Failure is a ruthless mirror, showing us exactly where our understanding is weak, where our skills are lacking, and where our pride has blinded us. It strips away our pretense and forces us to be honest with ourselves. It teaches us resilience, the art of falling down and getting back up again and again. It shows us that our worth is not tied to our successes or failures. To a wise person, there is no such thing as failure. There are only learning experiences. Each mistake, each stumble, is simply a course correction, a valuable piece of data showing us a way that does not work, bringing us one step closer to the way that does. Illness is perhaps the most stark and unavoidable teacher we will ever face. When our own health or the health of a loved one falters, our carefully constructed world of plans and certainties is shattered. Illness is a direct, visceral lesson in the truth of impermanence, a truth we may have understood intellectually, but now must confront in our very bones. It is a teacher that commands our full attention. It reminds us of the incredible preciousness of this human body, a gift we so often take for granted. A single day without pain, a single easy breath, is revealed to be an extraordinary treasure. Illness teaches us to let go of our attachment to control, to surrender to the great, uncontrollable flow of life. It can be a powerful catalyst for reevaluating our priorities, for stripping away the non-essential and focusing on what truly matters: love, connection, and the quality of our presence in each moment. It is a severe master, but its teachings are profound. There is a story of a great Zen master who was walking through a forest with his disciples. They passed many magnificent trees, tall and straight and strong, the kind a carpenter would prize for timber. The disciples admired these perfect specimens of trees. Eventually, they came to a clearing where a strange, ancient tree stood alone. It was utterly crooked, its trunk gnarled and twisted, its branches growing in every direction but up. It was, by any conventional standard, an ugly and useless tree. Its wood was too bent to be used for beams, too full of knots to be used for furniture. To the surprise of the disciples, the master stopped in front of this crooked tree. He stood for a long moment, simply looking at it. Then, he placed his palms together and bowed deeply, his forehead nearly touching the ground, an act of the highest respect. One of the disciples, unable to contain his curiosity, asked, "Master, we have passed so many beautiful, perfect trees. Why do you stop and bow to this ugly, useless one?" The Zen master smiled. "You call this tree useless?" he said. "It is precisely because of its uselessness to the world that it has been allowed to live to such a great and wise old age. All the straight, beautiful, useful trees were long ago cut down and turned into houses and furniture. But this tree, by being true to its own crooked nature, by refusing to conform to the world's idea of what a tree ought to be, has achieved a state of magnificent, unbothered freedom. It has been my greatest teacher today. It has taught me the wisdom of not being easily used by the world's ambitions, and the liberation that comes from embracing what you truly are, in all your own unique and crooked glory. When we adopt this mindset, the entire world becomes our monastery. There is no longer a division between our spiritual life and our ordinary life. Every moment is a teaching. A frustrating traffic jam is no longer just an annoyance. It is a pop quiz on the subject of patience. A crying child is no longer just a demand on our energy. They are a living lesson in selfless, unconditional love. The mundane chore of washing the dishes becomes a practice in mindfulness, in finding beauty in simple, repetitive tasks. The person who praises you is a teacher, showing you how your ego reacts to flattery. The person who criticizes you is a teacher, showing you where you are still vulnerable. With this view, nothing is wasted. Every interaction, every challenge, every joy, and every sorrow is a part of the curriculum. Life is no longer a chaotic series of events happening to us, but a wise and compassionate unfolding, constantly offering us exactly the lesson we need to learn next. And as we learn to see the teacher in everything, we naturally begin to find a wiser, more balanced way of navigating our lives, a path that avoids the pitfalls of extremes. This leads us to explore one of the core principles of the path, the great and noble middle way. As we learn to see the teacher in every person and every circumstance, a natural sense of balance begins to arise in our lives. We learn not to be overly elated by praise or completely devastated by criticism. We learn to meet both success and failure with a measure of equanimity. This growing ability to walk a balanced path in our minds and hearts leads us to one of the most foundational and practical teachings of the Buddha, a principle born directly from his own dramatic and painful search for truth. It is the wisdom of the middle way, a path of profound sanity that navigates between the treacherous cliffs of extremes. The story of the Buddha's life before his enlightenment is a story of a great experiment with these two extremes. First, he explored the extreme of sensual indulgence. As a young prince named Siddhartha, he lived a life that most people would consider a perfect fantasy. He was sheltered in magnificent palaces, surrounded by every imaginable pleasure. The finest silks adorned his body, the most delicious foods were prepared for him, the most beautiful music was played for his entertainment. Every desire was instantly gratified. His father, the king, believed that by drowning him in pleasure, he could shield him from any knowledge of suffering. Yet, in the midst of this perfect world, the prince felt a deep and unsettling emptiness. He discovered that the constant gratification of the senses does not lead to lasting happiness. In fact, it leads to a kind of bondage. The senses, when always fed, become jaded and weak, demanding ever more intense stimulation to feel anything at all. It is a path of addiction, a restless chase for the next fleeting pleasure, a life spent on a hedonistic treadmill that leads nowhere. This was the first extreme, the path of indulgence, and he found it wanting. It was a life of a loose lute string, too slack to make any beautiful music. So, he did what many great seekers do. He swung to the opposite pole. Renouncing his palace, his family, and his title, he embarked on a search for truth by exploring the extreme of severe asceticism. He believed, as many did at the time, that by punishing and conquering the body, he could liberate the spirit trapped within it. For 6 long years, he subjected himself to the most unimaginable hardships. He practiced extreme fasting, eating only a single grain of rice a day until his ribs stuck out like the slats of a broken shed and his spine could be seen through the skin of his stomach. He held his breath for terrifying lengths of time until he felt sharp pains in his head and ears, as if a giant were crushing his skull. He slept on beds of thorns and exposed his body to the searing heat of the day and the freezing cold of the night. He pushed his body and mind to the absolute limit of human endurance, determined to break through to enlightenment by sheer force of will. But this path, too, proved to be a dead end. It did not lead to wisdom. It led to misery. His body became so emaciated and weak that he could barely stand. His mind, far from becoming clear, was clouded by constant pain, dizziness, and exhaustion. It was impossible to meditate, impossible to find any clarity when the instrument of the body was so broken and tortured. This was the second extreme, the path of self-mortification, and he saw with utter clarity that it too was a path of suffering. It was the life of a lute string stretched too tight, on the verge of snapping. One day, bathing in the Neranjara River, he was so weak that he collapsed and nearly drowned. He managed to pull himself to the bank, a living skeleton, having achieved nothing but despair after 6 years of brutal effort. Lying there, he remembered a scene from his childhood, a musician teaching someone how to tune a lute. The teacher had explained, "If the string is too loose, it will not make a sound. If the string is too tight, it will snap. Only when the string is tuned just right, not too slack and not too taut, can it produce beautiful, resonant music." In that moment of utter exhaustion, a profound insight dawned. His life had been a study of the two useless extremes. The loose string of his palace life had produced no music. The tight string of his ascetic life had produced only harsh, painful noise. The path to enlightenment, he realized, must be a middle way. It must be a path of balance. At that moment, a young village girl named Sujata, seeing his emaciated state, offered him a golden bowl filled with milk rice. His 5 ascetic companions watched in horror, considering him a failure for giving up their harsh path. But Siddhartha accepted the nourishing food. In this simple act of kindness to himself, he was establishing the principle of the middle way. With his body nourished and his strength returning, and his mind now calm and clear, he sat down beneath a great tree, not to punish himself, not to indulge himself, but simply to see. And it was in this state of perfect balance that he finally awakened and became the Buddha, the enlightened one. This middle way is the foundational principle for a wise and sustainable spiritual life. It is not a compromise, but a path of excellence that avoids the burnout of self-punishment and the slavery of addiction. It is the art of tuning the instrument of your body and mind. You learn to care for your body not out of vanity, but because it is the precious vessel that carries you on this journey. You give it healthy food, adequate rest, and gentle exercise. But you do not become a slave to its every craving for comfort and pleasure. You treat it with the respect you would give to a finely crafted instrument, keeping it clean, well cared for, and perfectly tuned. This principle of balance extends to every aspect of our lives. In our work, it is the path between the extreme of the workaholic who sacrifices their health and relationships for success, and the extreme of laziness and apathy. The middle way is finding a rhythm of meaningful, engaged work, balanced with joyful, restorative rest. In our spiritual practice, it is the path between the extreme of tense, white-knuckled striving, where we try to force our minds into submission, and the extreme of sleepy, dull laxity. The middle way is a relaxed, alert, and consistent effort, a gentle and patient application of mindfulness. In our relationships, it is the path between the extreme of codependent clinging, where we lose ourselves in another person, and the extreme of aloof, fearful isolation. The middle way is a warm, open-hearted connection that respects both our own integrity and the freedom of the other. This is a path of profound kindness and sanity. It releases us from the all-or-nothing thinking that so often sabotages our best intentions. It tells us that we do not need to be perfect, we only need to be balanced. We do not need to torture ourselves to be spiritual, nor do we need to abandon the world. We simply need to learn to walk with grace and skill between the ditches of too much and too little. The monk sleeping under the stars is a perfect embodiment of this. He is not indulging in a soft bed, but neither is he sleeping on thorns. He is not feasting, but he has accepted enough alms to nourish his body for the day. He is living a life of beautiful, simple sufficiency. And as we learn to walk this balanced middle way, our actions themselves begin to take on a new quality. They become less forceful, less born of struggle. We learn to stop fighting the current of life, and instead to move with its natural, intelligent flow. This leads us to the graceful, effortless art of non-doing. Walking the balanced middle way, we begin to find a new rhythm in our lives. The constant sense of effort, of pushing against the current of life, of straining and striving, begins to soften. We are no longer oscillating between the violent extremes of indulgence and punishment. A sense of harmony begins to permeate our being. From this newfound place of balance, we can begin to learn a deeper and more graceful way of engaging with the world. It is an art known in the Taoist tradition as Wu Wei, a concept so resonant with the spirit of Zen that it feels like a sister teaching. Wu Wei is often translated as non-doing or effortless action, but this can be misleading. It is not a state of passive laziness or apathy. It is the art of acting in perfect alignment with the natural flow of things, a state of intelligent, responsive, and graceful effectiveness. Imagine two people in a boat on a river. The first person, operating from a place of struggle, decides they want to go upstream. They paddle with all their might, their muscles straining, sweat pouring from their brow, fighting the powerful current every inch of the way. They may make some progress, but they will be utterly exhausted, and their journey will be one of grim, joyless determination. The second person, practicing Wu Wei, also wishes to travel, but instead of fighting the river, they study its currents. They use a rudder to gently guide the boat into an eddy that flows in their desired direction. They raise a sail to catch the wind, using an energy that is not their own. They move with skill, intelligence, and grace, working with the forces of nature rather than against them. They arrive at their destination feeling energized and in harmony with their surroundings. Both have acted. Both have achieved a goal. But the first person acted with forceful, ego-driven effort, while the second acted with the effortless grace of Wu Wei. It is the difference between a novice dancer who consciously thinks about every single step and a master who has become one with the music, allowing the dance to flow through them. There is a sublime story from the ancient Taoist sage, Zhuangzi, that perfectly illustrates this state of being. It tells of a prince who was watching his personal butcher, a man named Ding, as he carved an ox. The prince was mesmerized. The butcher's work was not a gruesome task. It was a masterful performance. Every touch of his hand, every lean of his shoulder, every bend of his knee was in perfect fluid rhythm. The knife glided through the carcass with a soft, whispering sound, and with a few effortless movements, the ox fell apart into its component pieces. The prince was astonished. "This is incredible," he exclaimed. "How have you possibly achieved such a high level of skill?" The butcher laid down his knife and replied, "What your servant loves is the way, which goes beyond mere skill. When I first began cutting up oxen, all I could see was the ox as a solid mass. After 3 years of practice, I no longer saw the whole ox. I saw the parts. But now, I meet it with my spirit and do not look with my eyes. My senses stop functioning and my spirit moves where it wants. I follow the natural contours. I glide through the great hollows. I follow the openings that are already there. I never touch a ligament or a tendon, let alone a major bone," he continued. "A good cook changes his knife once a year because he has to cut. A mediocre cook changes his knife once a month because he has to hack. I have been using this same knife for 19 years, and I have carved up thousands of oxen, yet its blade is as sharp as if it just came from the whetstone. This is because there are spaces within the joints, and the blade of the knife has no thickness. When you insert what has no thickness into a space where there is plenty of room, the knife glides through effortlessly." The butcher's secret was that he was not imposing his will on the ox. He was yielding to its inherent nature. He was moving through the empty spaces. This is the art of Wu Wei. The prince, deeply moved, said, "From listening to the words of my butcher, I have learned the way to nourish life." Gah! This seemingly esoteric art is something we can practice in every corner of our lives. In our communication with others, the opposite of Wu Wei is arguing to win, forcing our viewpoint, and interrupting to make our point. It is a form of hacking. The way of Wu Wei is to listen deeply, to feel the spaces and openings in the conversation, to respond to what is actually being said, and to allow a shared understanding to emerge naturally, without force. In our work, especially creative work, the opposite is trying to brute force an idea, staring at a blank page with a tense and anxious mind. This is like trying to hack at a solid bone. The way of Wu Wei is to cultivate the conditions for insight, stillness, focus, curiosity, and then to trust the process, to let the ideas flow, to follow the natural grain of the project rather than forcing it to fit a rigid, preconceived notion. In our problem solving, we can learn to hold a problem lightly in our awareness, rather than attacking it with frantic, anxious thought. By allowing it to be, by creating space around it, we allow our deeper, intuitive intelligence to work. And often, the solution appears effortlessly, a gift of our non-doing. This state of effortless action is the natural result of all the inner work we have been exploring. When the mind is anchored by the breath, when it is a clear mirror free from the distortions of the past and future, when the heart is soft with loving kindness, and when the body and mind are balanced through the middle way, our actions begin to arise from a different place. They are no longer dictated by the tight, anxious, controlling ego. They arise spontaneously from a deep intuitive wisdom that is aligned with the flow of life itself. We stop being an obstacle to the flow, and we become a channel for it. This is not a mystical state reserved for ancient sages. We have all touched it in moments of being in the zone. An athlete making the perfect play without thinking, a musician lost in improvisation, a gardener tending to their plants with intuitive care. These are all moments of wu-wei, moments where the doer disappears, and there is only the doing. This is the grace that emerges when we learn to trust life. We trust the intelligence of our own bodies, we trust the wisdom of our own hearts, and we trust the great, unfolding process of the universe. The monk sleeping under the stars is the epitome of wu-wei. He is not trying to be peaceful. He is not practicing letting go. His peace is the natural fragrance of a being who has ceased to struggle with reality. His life is a dance, not a battle. He moves with the wind and the rain, not against them. As we learn to live with this effortless grace, we begin to experience the true fruits of all our practice. We begin to taste a new kind of freedom, a freedom that is not about getting what we want, but about being free from the frantic wanting itself. This is the liberation of the unburdened mind. As we learn to walk the middle way, as we begin to touch the effortless grace of wu-wei, a new feeling begins to dawn in our experience. It is a sense of lightness, of release, of a heavy burden being set down. This feeling is the first taste, the sweet fragrance of true freedom. In our modern world, we have a very particular idea of what freedom means. We are taught that freedom is the ability to do whatever we want, to go wherever we want, to buy whatever we want, and to satisfy our every impulse. It is a freedom defined by the expansion of external choices. But the wisdom of the path invites us to explore a much deeper, more radical, and more resilient kind of liberty. It is the freedom not of the body or the bank account, but of the mind. It is the freedom from the inner tyrants that have been dictating the terms of our happiness our entire lives. External freedom is precious. The freedom to speak your mind, to live without fear of oppression, to move about as you wish. These are worthy conditions to cultivate in our world. But they are not the source of lasting peace, because they are always dependent on circumstances. The truly profound freedom, the kind that cannot be given and cannot be taken away, is an internal state. It is freedom from the relentless grip of craving. It is freedom from the bitter poison of aversion and hatred. It is freedom from the bewildering fog of ignorance. It is the liberation of the unburdened mind. Imagine a person held within the stone walls of a prison cell. Their external freedom is completely gone. Yet, through years of inner practice, this person has learned to watch their thoughts without believing them, to feel their feelings without being consumed by them. They have made peace with their past and have let go of anxiety for their future. Their mind is spacious, calm, and filled with a compassionate understanding for their captors. Though their body is confined to a tiny room, their mind is as vast and as free as the sky. Now, imagine another person, a billionaire who lives in a penthouse apartment overlooking the city. Their external freedom is seemingly infinite. They can fly anywhere in the world on a moment's notice, buy any object, command any service. Yet, this person is a complete slave to their inner world. They are tormented by the fear of losing their wealth. They are consumed by a bottomless craving for more status, more possessions, more pleasure. They are relentlessly pursued by a deep, existential boredom that no amount of entertainment can quell. Their moods are dictated by the rise and fall of the stock market. Who between these two is truly free? The path teaches us that the person with a free mind, even in a prison, is infinitely freer than the person with a captive mind, even in a palace. The most practical and life-changing dimension of this inner freedom is freedom from automatic reactivity. For most of our lives, we operate like puppets on a string. An event happens in the world, and our conditioning pulls the strings. Someone praises us, and the string of pride is pulled, making us puff up. Someone insults us, and the string of anger is pulled, making us lash out. We see an advertisement for something beautiful, and the string of desire is pulled, making us crave. We are not choosing our responses. Our responses are happening to us. We are living in a state of reaction, not of conscious action. We are not free. The practice of mindfulness, of anchoring ourselves in the present moment, introduces a revolutionary new element into this equation. It creates a space, a sacred pause, between the stimulus and the response. In this space, our freedom is born. Let's say someone speaks a harsh word to you. The old pattern is stimulus, harsh word, leads instantly to reaction, a flash of anger, a defensive reply. There is no space, no choice, but with practice, the process changes. The stimulus, the harsh word, still arrives. The initial feeling, the heat of anger, still arises in the body. But because you have learned to watch your inner world, you see it. The mindful mind notes, anger is here. A feeling of heat is in my chest. Defensive thoughts are arising. In that moment of seeing, the puppet string is cut. You are no longer fused with the anger. You are the calm, spacious awareness that is witnessing the anger. And in that space, a choice becomes possible for the first time. You can choose to follow the old path of lashing out, or you can choose a new path. You can choose to remain silent. You can choose to take a deep breath. You can choose to respond with a kind question like, "You seem upset. Is everything okay?" You have reclaimed the power to choose your response, regardless of the situation. This is the ultimate liberty. It is the freedom to write your own script for your life, rather than endlessly acting out a script that was written for you by your past conditioning. Now, let us return to our silent friend, the monk sleeping peacefully under the stars. His freedom is the perfect embodiment of this internal state. It is not freedom to have more, but freedom from the need for more. He is free from the desire for a soft mattress and a climate-controlled room, and so the entire wild, beautiful earth can be his bedroom. He is free from the need for a solid roof and locked doors, and so the magnificent, star-dusted cosmos can be his ceiling. He is free from the craving for rich and complex foods, so a simple bowl of rice provides perfect nourishment. He is free from the exhausting burden of maintaining a reputation or a social status, and so he can be completely, authentically himself in every moment. He is free from the fear of loss, because he has realized there is nothing he truly owns, and therefore nothing he can ever lose. The king in his castle, whom we imagined at the beginning of our journey, is surrounded by wealth and guards, yet he lives in constant fear. He is a prisoner of his own possessions, terrified of assassins, of betrayal, of his kingdom being taken away. The monk, with his empty hands and simple robe, has nothing to be taken. He is the master of his own mind, the king of his own inner kingdom. And because he is ruled by nothing, he is free. This is the state of the unburdened mind. It is the feeling of finally setting down a heavy backpack that you have been carrying for so long. You had forgotten what it felt like to walk without it. The weight in that backpack is the story of me, the fragile ego, that needs to be constantly protected, defended, and gratified. When this burden is released, the mind returns to its natural state, light, spacious, resilient, and suffused with a quiet joy. It is a peace that does not depend on circumstances being a certain way. It is a peace that is not fragile, but deep and abiding. It is the freedom that comes from wanting nothing more than what is already here, in this simple, perfect, present moment. And when one is established in this profound inner freedom, one develops the capacity to meet all of life's changing fortunes, the gains and losses, the praise and blame, with an unshakable and graceful stability. This is the serene smile of true equanimity. From the fertile ground of true freedom, a remarkable quality begins to blossom in the heart and mind. It is a deep, unshakable peace, a serene stability that allows us to stand firm and balanced in the very center of life's unpredictable storms. It is the mind's ability to remain spacious, open, and at ease, no matter what winds may blow. In the ancient language of the path, this quality is called upekkha, or equanimity. It is the quiet, knowing smile of the Buddha, a smile that can hold the whole world, with all its beauty and all its pain, in a vast and compassionate embrace. It is vital, from the very beginning, to understand what equanimity is not. It is not indifference. It is not a cold, detached apathy or a cynical refusal to care. Indifference is a state of a closed heart, a wall we build out of fear or weariness to keep the world at bay. Equanimity, on the other hand, is the state of a heart that is so wide open, so vast and fearless, that it is no longer shaken by the waves of experience. Indifference is a stone, hard and unfeeling. Equanimity is a great mountain. The mountain is not indifferent to the weather. It feels the warmth of the sun, the lash of the wind, the soft blanket of the snow, but it is not uprooted or destroyed by the storm. It remains stable, grounded, and majestic, allowing the weather to come and go. In the same way, a mind of equanimity does not shut out life. It feels joy, it feels sorrow, but it is not swept away by them. It is rooted in a wisdom so deep that it can hold all of life's experiences with a tender, unbreakable peace. This wisdom allows us to stand firm in the face of what are known as the 8 worldly winds, the inevitable pairs of opposites that blow through every human life. These are praise and blame, gain and loss, pleasure and pain, and fame and disrepute. For most of us, our lives are a desperate dance with these winds. We run eagerly towards the winds of praise, gain, pleasure, and fame, and we run in terror from the winds of blame, loss, pain, and disrepute. Our inner peace is completely dependent on which wind is blowing at any given moment. The mind of equanimity learns to find its center, its stability, independent of these winds. Consider praise and blame, how our ego loves the sweet wind of praise. When someone compliments us, we feel elated, we puff up with pride. We become attached to that feeling and subtly begin to perform for more of it. And how we dread the bitter wind of blame. When someone criticizes us, we feel wounded, defensive, or crushed. Our mood for the entire day can be ruined by a single harsh word. Equanimity is the understanding that both praise and blame are just sounds, the opinions of another person's mind, which are as fickle and changeable as the wind itself. A wise person listens to criticism to see if there is any truth in it they can learn from, and they accept praise gracefully without becoming arrogant. But they do not hand over the key to their own happiness to the ever-changing opinions of others. Consider gain and loss. Our lives are a constant flow of acquiring and losing. We gain a new job, a new relationship, a new possession, and we feel a surge of happiness and security. Then, we lose a job, a relationship ends, an object breaks, and we feel a sense of devastation and lack. The mind of equanimity, understanding the truth of impermanence, learns to hold all things lightly. It can enjoy gain without clinging to it, knowing that it is a temporary visitor, and it can face loss with grace and courage, without falling into despair, knowing that nothing was ever truly ours to begin with. It is like holding water in cupped hands. We enjoy it while it is there, but we do not lament when it inevitably flows away. Consider pleasure and pain. Our entire nervous system is wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. Equanimity does not mean we no longer enjoy a beautiful sunset or a delicious meal. It means we enjoy them fully, without becoming addicted, without the desperate craving that turns pleasure into a trap. And when pain inevitably arises, whether physical or emotional, equanimity allows us to meet it with a spacious, compassionate awareness. We can be with the pain without adding the second arrow of mental resistance, the "I don't want this," that turns pain into suffering. We allow it to be there, knowing that it too, like everything else, is a passing cloud. There is a classic story that beautifully illustrates this unshakable quality in action. One day, a man who was deeply hostile to the Buddha and his teachings came to confront him. He stood before the seated, silent Buddha and unleashed a torrent of the most hateful and abusive language imaginable. He insulted his character, his family, and his teachings. The Buddha did not stir. He did not argue or defend himself. He simply sat in a state of serene, receptive silence, listening with a calm and open presence, until the man, having exhausted his vocabulary of rage, finally fell silent. The Buddha then looked at him with eyes full of kindness and asked a simple question. "My friend," he said, "if you buy a gift for someone and you offer it to them, but that person does not accept your gift, to whom does the gift belong?" The man, taken aback by the unexpected question, replied, "Well, if they don't take it, then it still belongs to me." The Buddha smiled his knowing, peaceful smile. "Exactly so," he said. "My friend, you have just offered me the gift of your anger, your insults, and your hatred. I do not accept your gift." The man was left speechless. His anger, having found no purchase, no reactive surface to cling to, simply dissolved. He saw that the Buddha's inner peace was a fortress that could not be breached by external attack, because it was not built of stone, but of a vast, accepting space. This is the protective power of equanimity. It also brings a profound wisdom to our relationships, especially to the way we love. Our ordinary love is often intertwined with attachment and fear. We love someone, and so we become anxious about their well-being. We become fearful of losing them. We try to control their lives to ensure our own happiness. This kind of clinging love, though well-intentioned, is often a source of great suffering for both people. Equanimity allows for a purer, more spacious kind of love to emerge. It is the ability to care deeply, to love with our whole being, but without the anxious, grasping quality of attachment. It is the boundless goodwill of metta, combined with the wisdom of letting go. It is the love a wise grandparent has for their grandchild, delighting in their existence, wishing them every happiness, but not needing them to be a certain way to feel fulfilled. It is a heart that is open to the whole world, able to rejoice in the happiness of others and to feel compassion for their sorrow, but without being thrown off balance by either. It is the deep, still center of the spinning wheel of life. When one is established in this state of profound, unshakable peace, one's perception of the world undergoes a final, beautiful transformation. We stop searching for grand, dramatic moments of happiness and begin to discover an extraordinary beauty in the most simple, humble aspects of our lives. We begin to see the ordinary miracles. Resting in the deep, unshakable peace of equanimity, the frantic search for happiness finally comes to an end. The mind, no longer tossed about by the winds of praise and blame, gain and loss, stops its restless scanning of the horizon for the next big event that will finally make it happy. And in this stillness, in this quiet state of non-seeking, something truly magical occurs. Our senses, long dulled by distraction and clouded by worry, begin to awaken as if for the first time. The world, which had seemed so ordinary and familiar, begins to reveal its true nature, which is anything but ordinary. We begin to discover the countless, breathtaking miracles that are hidden in plain sight, in the very fabric of our everyday lives. We have been taught to think of miracles as grand, supernatural events that defy the laws of physics. Walking on water, parting the seas, a sudden healing. But the wisdom of the path suggests that perhaps we have been looking in the wrong direction. Perhaps the true miracle is not to walk on water, but to walk on the solid earth with our full attention. Think, for a moment, of the simple act of taking a step. Your brain is performing 1,000,000 complex calculations of balance and momentum. Your body, a universe of cooperating cells, moves with an intelligence that is beyond your comprehension. And you are doing this on the surface of a beautiful planet that is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, hurtling through the vast, silent darkness of space. To take a single, conscious step, to feel the firm support of the earth beneath your foot, is a miracle of staggering proportions. But we miss it. We walk from the car to the office, our minds lost in a fog of plans and anxieties, completely oblivious to the astonishing reality of our own movement. The same is true of our own breath. You will take over 20,000 breaths today, and you will likely be unconscious of almost every single one. But to bring your full, gentle attention to just one single breath is to witness a miracle. To feel the cool air enter your nostrils, to follow it as it travels down into your lungs, delivering life-giving oxygen to every cell in your body, and then to feel the gentle release of the out-breath, all happening perfectly, rhythmically, without any conscious effort from you. This is the gift of life itself, offered and received in every moment. It is the universe breathing you. Consider the simple act of drinking a cup of tea. When we are lost in thought, we gulp it down for the caffeine, barely noticing its taste or warmth. But to drink a cup of tea in mindfulness is to perform a sacred ceremony. As you hold the warm cup in your hands, you can see the whole universe in it. You can see the tea leaf, and the sunshine and the rain that nourished it. You can see the hands of the tea picker and the potter who shaped the clay of the cup. You can feel the warmth seeping into your fingers. You can see the steam rising like a prayer. You can inhale its fragrant aroma. And when you finally take a sip, you can taste it fully, a simple, profound pleasure. In that mindful moment, a cup of tea is not just a beverage. It is a point of communion with the entire web of interbeing. This is the difference between living and merely existing. Why do we miss these miracles? It is not because they are not there. They are here, always. We miss them because the window of our perception is clouded. It is clouded by the dust of our constant mental chatter, our plans, our worries, our judgments. It is clouded by the smudges of our regrets about the past and our anxieties about the future. The practice of mindfulness is the simple, patient act of cleaning this window. As we gently wipe away the dust of distraction, the world outside does not change, but our ability to see it is transformed. The colors of a flower become more vibrant. The taste of an apple becomes more intense. The sound of a bird singing becomes a moment of pure, unadulterated joy. We are not creating a new world. We are finally seeing the beautiful one that has been here all along. Let us imagine a woman we will call Anna. Before she began to practice, her life was a blur of efficiency. She would wake up, and her mind would immediately be at the office, planning her day while she mechanically gulped down coffee and toast. The drive to work was lost time, spent stewing in traffic and rehearsing difficult conversations in her head. Her life was a series of tasks to be checked off, a race to get to a future moment when she could finally relax, but she never arrived at that moment. She was living entirely in her head, a ghost haunting the corridors of her own life. Then Anna began to practice. She started with something small. She decided to bring her full attention to the first sip of her morning coffee. She felt the warmth of the mug. She smelled the rich aroma. She tasted that first sip as if it were the only thing that existed. It was a revelation. Slowly, she began to bring this quality of attention to other moments. She started to feel the water on her skin in the shower. She started to notice the color of the sky during her commute. She began to truly listen to her colleagues, instead of just waiting for her turn to speak. Nothing in Anna's external life had changed. She had the same job, the same commute, the same daily routines. But her inner experience of her life had been completely transformed. It was as if she had been living in a black and white film and someone had suddenly turned on the color. The morning coffee became a small, cherished ritual of pleasure. The commute became an opportunity to notice the changing seasons. A conversation with a colleague became a moment of genuine human connection. She had stopped waiting for happiness to arrive in some grand future event and had begun to discover it in the texture of her present moments. She had learned to see the ordinary miracles. This is the great secret of a joyful life. We spend so much of our energy chasing happiness, believing it is a destination we will reach when we get the promotion, find the perfect partner, or buy the dream house. The path of wisdom reveals that happiness is not a destination. It is the path itself, the path of walking with mindful attention. Joy is not a prize to be won at the end of the race. It is the simple, profound pleasure of feeling your feet on the ground as you run. When you can find a universe of wonder in a cup of tea, a sense of deep peace in a single conscious breath, and a feeling of awe in a simple flower, you have become independent of external conditions for your happiness. You have discovered a wellspring of joy that can never run dry, because it flows from the very ground of being itself. The monk under the stars is not waiting for a miracle to happen. He is immersed in one. The feeling of the cool night air on his skin is a miracle. The symphony of the crickets is a miracle. The silent, steady light of the stars is a miracle. His entire existence is a continuous, unfolding, and deeply peaceful miracle. This is the ultimate gift of an awakened mind. And to live in this state, to see the world as constantly miraculous, is to touch the very heart of enlightenment. But what then is the nature of this final awakening? What is this ultimate state of peace that the path leads to? When we learn to walk the earth as if it were a miracle, when we can find a universe of wonder in a simple cup of tea, when our hearts are steady with equanimity and our minds are free, we begin to draw very close to the ultimate aim of the spiritual path. It is a state that has been called by many names: liberation, enlightenment, the unconditioned, the deathless. But its most famous name is nirvana. The word itself is heavy with mystique, often misunderstood as a kind of lush, heavenly paradise we might go to after we die, a reward for a virtuous life. But the Buddha's teaching on this subject was far more immediate, more psychological, and more profoundly liberating than any promise of a future paradise. Nirvana is not a place you go to. It is a state you realize, a reality that can be experienced right here, in this very life. To understand its true meaning, we must look at the word itself. The Sanskrit word nirvana literally means to extinguish or to blow out, like snuffing out the flame of a candle. This immediately brings up a sense of fear in many of us. To be extinguished? Does this mean annihilation? The end of existence? This is a fundamental misunderstanding. The question is not that something is extinguished, but what is extinguished. What is being blown out is not the flame of life itself, not the light of consciousness or awareness. What is being extinguished are the very fires that cause all of our suffering. The Buddha spoke of 3 primary fires that burn relentlessly within the heart of every unenlightened being, causing all our agitation, our anxiety, and our pain. The first is the fire of greed. This is the burning, insatiable wanting, the restless craving for more pleasure, more possessions, more status, more life. It is the fire of addiction, the thirsty ghost within us that can never be satisfied. The second is the fire of hatred or aversion. This is the searing, painful fire of anger, resentment, ill will, and judgment. It is the part of us that pushes away reality, that says, "I don't want this," that burns with the heat of our own bitterness. And the third is the fire of delusion or ignorance. This is the smoky, bewildering fire of confusion. It is our fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of reality. It is the deluded belief in a solid, separate self. It is the fog that prevents us from seeing things as they truly are. Our normal state of being is to live with these 3 fires raging within us, sometimes one burning brighter, sometimes another. Our lives are a constant effort to feed the fire of greed, to act out the fire of hatred, and to stumble around in the smoke of delusion. Nirvana is simply the state of perfect peace, coolness, and relief that is left when these 3 fires have been completely and permanently extinguished. A fire cannot burn without fuel. The entire path we have been exploring together is the process of learning to stop supplying the fuel for these fires. The fuel is our clinging, our attachments, our mental grasping, all born from the root delusion of a separate self. When a pleasant feeling arises and we cling to it, wanting it to last forever, we are throwing fuel on the fire of greed. When an unpleasant event occurs and we nurture our resentment, replaying the story of how we were wronged, we are throwing fuel on the fire of hatred. Every time we act from the perspective of our small, defensive, separate ego, we are throwing fuel on the fire of delusion. The practice of mindfulness is what allows us to see the fuel in our hands before we throw it on the blaze. The practice of wisdom, of seeing impermanence and no self, is what allows us to realize that the fuel is not even solid to begin with. It is a phantom. Nirvana, then, is not a violent act of putting out the fires. It is the natural, gentle, and peaceful cessation that occurs when the fuel supply has been completely cut off. Imagine an old oil lamp. As long as you keep adding oil, the flame will keep burning, flickering, and casting agitated shadows. The spiritual path is the process of understanding the nature of the oil and deciding to stop adding it. When the last drop of oil is consumed, the flame doesn't need to be attacked or destroyed. It simply, peacefully, goes out on its own. The agitation ceases, the flickering stops. All that is left is a profound stillness and coolness. That is the peace of nirvana. It is the ultimate security because it is a peace that is not dependent on anything. It is not based on having pleasant conditions, but on the complete absence of the inner causes of suffering. This is not some far-off, unattainable goal. It is a psychological reality. We may have even touched fleeting moments of it in our own lives. A moment during a walk in nature, where for a few seconds the inner chatter stopped and you felt a profound, peaceful connection to everything around you. A moment when you were so absorbed in a creative act, in a state of flow, that the sense of a separate you disappeared entirely. A moment when you genuinely forgave someone and felt a great, heavy burden lift from your heart. These are tiny sparks from the great, cool peace of nirvana. Awakening is the stabilization of this state, making it the permanent nature of the mind, rather than a fleeting, accidental experience. And what is left when the fires are extinguished? This is the most profound question. It is not, as some fear, a blank nothingness. It is not oblivion. What is extinguished is the illusion, the distortion, the suffering. What is annihilated is the false, constricted sense of a separate self. What remains is reality itself, seen for the first time without the distorting heat haze of greed, the angry red glare of hatred, or the bewildering smoke of delusion. The mind, no longer a battlefield, becomes a perfect, clear mirror. What is left is a boundless, spacious awareness. What is left is a deep, unshakable peace. What is left is a natural, effortless, and radiant compassion for all living things, born from the direct realization of interbeing. It is not that you become nothing, it is that you realize you are everything. The prison walls of the small self dissolve, and you find that you are, and always have been, one with the vast, open, and luminous nature of existence itself. This state is beyond words, for all words are created by the mind that is still caught within the fires. It cannot be fully grasped by the intellect. It can only be known through direct realization. It is the final and ultimate homecoming. It is the deep, silent, unshakable peace of our monk, resting under the stars, his mind as vast, as clear, and as tranquil as the night sky itself. Having traced the path from our familiar world of suffering all the way to this shore of ultimate peace, we have one final task. How do we take this entire, profound journey and live it, breathe it, and embody it in the midst of our ordinary, everyday lives? How do we become the monk under the stars, in our own homes, our own families, and our own hearts? We have walked a long and winding road together on this inner journey. We have stood before the palace of our own illusions and seen how we build our own prisons from our attachments. We have watched the great river of impermanence flow by and felt the ground of certainty dissolve beneath our feet. We have searched for the ghost of the self and found only a shimmering, empty process. We have learned to anchor ourselves with the breath, to polish the mirror of the mind, and to water the heart with loving kindness. We have explored what it means to forgive, to let go of anxiety, to see the world as our teacher, and to walk the balanced middle way. We have glimpsed the effortless grace of non-doing and touched the profound peace of nirvana. And so we arrive at the final, most important question of all. What now? Do we have to leave our lives behind, sell our homes, renounce our relationships, and find a remote cave in the mountains to realize this peace? The answer, born from the heart of this gentle wisdom, is a compassionate and resounding no. The goal is not to run away from your life. The goal is to become fully, deeply, and freely present within your life. Your daily life is not an obstacle to your spiritual practice. It is the very ground of your practice. It is your monastery, your sacred ashram, your wilderness for awakening. The demanding boss or the critical family member is not a distraction from your peace. They are your personal teacher of patience, offering you daily opportunities to practice what you have learned. The noise and chaos of a busy household is not an impediment to silence. It is the perfect training ground for discovering the unshakable, noble silence that resides within your own heart. The financial pressures you face are not a sign of your failure. They are a direct invitation to practice non-attachment, to distinguish between your true needs and your conditioned wants, and to walk the middle way with wisdom and care. You do not need to find a special Bodhi tree under which to sit. Your Bodhi tree is right here, in the midst of your ordinary, messy, beautiful life. Its roots are in the challenges you face every day. This means we can learn to live in our homes with the free and unburdened heart of a wanderer. Our homes can be a place of shelter, comfort, and love, but we must be careful not to let them become another palace of illusions, another prison of attachment. We can learn to be a grateful steward of our space and our possessions, rather than a frantic guardian. A steward cares for things, uses them wisely, and enjoys them, but their identity is not bound up in them. They know that all things are temporary visitors. They can enjoy the comfort of their bed without being enslaved by it, knowing that true rest comes from a peaceful mind. They can enjoy the security of their home without being terrified of losing it, knowing that their true home is the present moment. To live in a house with the heart of a traveler is to hold all things lightly, to be grateful for the shelter they provide, but to know that your real roof is the vast, open sky of your own awareness. And that is the greatest secret. The starry sky that our monk sleeps under is not, ultimately, a place. It is a state of mind. It is a metaphor for the mind that has been cleared of the storm clouds of greed, hatred, and delusion. When you sit and practice with your breath, you are creating space in your mind. That space is your sky. When you practice mindfulness, watching your thoughts and feelings come and go like clouds, you are realizing that you are the sky, not the clouds. The sky is never harmed, stained, or diminished by even the darkest storm. It remains vast, open, and serene. When you let go of your clinging to the past and your anxiety about the future, you are clearing away the fog, allowing the natural, brilliant clarity of your own awareness to shine through. You do not need to travel to a mountaintop to see the stars. You only need to quiet your mind. The infinite, peaceful cosmos is right here within you. To live as the monk under the stars, then, is to weave all these threads into the fabric of your day. It means moving through your world with an empty cup, ready to learn from everyone and everything. It means seeing the raft of the teachings for what it is, a precious tool to get you across troubled waters, but not a burden to be carried on your back forever. It means cultivating a heart so open and kind that it can hold your own sorrows and the sorrows of the world with a deep and unwavering compassion. It means learning to act from a place of balanced, intuitive grace, moving with the flow of life rather than constantly struggling against it. It is about discovering that true, lasting happiness is not found in grand achievements or peak experiences, but in the countless ordinary miracles that make up your life. The taste of water when you are thirsty, the warmth of the sun on your skin, the sound of a loved one's laughter, the simple, steady rhythm of your own heart. Let us return, one last time, to that image of the monk we met at the very beginning of our journey. Remember him, settling down for the night at the foot of the ancient tree. When we first saw him, we may have looked with the eyes of the world. We might have seen a man who was poor, lonely, and homeless, and perhaps we felt a flicker of pity. Or maybe we saw him as a romantic escapist, someone running away from the complexities of real life. But now, after our long journey together, we see him with new eyes. We see him with the eyes of understanding. We now know that his peace is not a product of his simple circumstances, but rather that his simple circumstances are a natural expression of his profound inner peace. He is not poor. He is unburdened. He is not lonely. He is in deep communion with all of life. He is not homeless. He has made the entire universe his home. His empty bowl is not a sign of lack, but a symbol of his inner fullness, his freedom from craving. We see that he is not running from the world. He has learned how to carry the world so lightly that he is utterly free within it. His quiet, gentle smile is the smile of nirvana, the smile of a mind that is finally, completely at peace. This is the path, and it is available to you right now. It is not about becoming someone else. It is about unbecoming all the things that are not you, so that your true, radiant nature can shine forth. The journey to becoming the monk under the stars does not begin with a grand gesture. It begins with your very next conscious breath. It begins with the choice, in a difficult moment, to be kind rather than right. It begins with the quiet courage to forgive an old hurt. It begins with the simple, wondrous act of noticing the miracle of your own two hands. The path is here. The time is now. And so, our long and gentle journey together comes to a quiet close. We began by witnessing the simple, profound peace of a lone monk sleeping under a canopy of stars, an image that served as a mirror, reflecting our own sense of confinement within the gilded palaces of our own making. We journeyed down to the very foundations of those palaces and discovered they were built not on solid rock, but on the ever-shifting banks of the river of impermanence. We searched bravely within those walls for the solid, unchanging self who was the master of the house, only to find the gentle, shimmering ghost of the self, a beautiful, empty process, interconnected with all of life. From that place of profound insight, we began to gather our tools. We found the ever-present anchor of the breath, our constant refuge and our guide back to the shores of the present moment. We learned to polish the clear mirror of mindfulness, allowing us to see our inner world with clarity and without judgment. We cultivated the gentle rain of loving kindness, learning to bathe ourselves and all beings in a warmth that heals and connects. With these tools in hand, we learned the art of letting go. We emptied our cup of old certainties. We used the teachings as a life-saving raft, but learned to leave it on the shore once we had crossed. We found the courage to forgive the past, to release our anxieties about the future, and to see the entire universe as our teacher. We learned to walk the balanced middle way, to act with the effortless grace of non-doing, and to find endless delight in the ordinary miracles of our lives. Finally, we glimpsed the nature of true freedom, the unburdened mind, and the ultimate, cool peace of nirvana, simple stillness that remains when the fires of suffering have finally burned themselves out. Having walked this entire path, the ultimate message is a simple and liberating one. The monk sleeping under the stars is not a distant ideal to be emulated by leaving your life behind. He is a reflection of your own deepest potential for peace. The final truth is this: serenity is not a destination you must travel to. It is a state of being you uncover within. The vast, silent, starry sky is not a place you must find. It is the very nature of your own mind when it is clear, open, and free. You do not need to search for anything more. You do not need another teaching, another tool, another secret. Everything you need to walk this path you already possess. Your breath is your constant anchor in the storm. Your awareness is your unfailing light in the darkness. Your own heart holds the innate capacity for a boundless and healing kindness. This journey does not end now that these words are ending. It truly begins, right now, in this moment. It continues in your very next conscious breath. It unfolds in your next choice to be patient when anger arises. It blossoms in your next moment of quiet gratitude for the simple gift of being alive. Let your mind become the clear night sky, vast and welcoming to all that passes. Let your heart be the silent, patient earth, able to hold everything with a deep and loving embrace. Live with grace, live with kindness, and know that you are, and always have been, completely and utterly home.